Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Disappeared from Supernatural World and Became Darkrai Movie. Before we start, please go support Phantom Eyes 90 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. HYOUDO suddenly disappeared. The entire supernatural is looking for him, but the one who doesn't mind in looking for him is the ENTOUR to which he belonged. But suddenly a mysterious creature appears, causing terror in the dreams of RIAS Gremory and her ENTOUR. And the one who will be in charge of unraveling all this mystery will be a red-haired MAOU and a pink-haired girl who will search for the brown-haired boy who stole her heart. Chapter 1 Genesis. Narakates Yui. Hello everyone, my name is Yuikates. I'm years old, and I'm feeling pretty sad. Why? Because the boy who stole my heart, HYOUDO Issei, disappeared. She was reported missing hours ago. I saw Mrs. Mickey HYOUDO quite sad and crying inconsolably. I could only hear her. I want my baby back, I want him back. Goro HYOUDO I have known for many years. He is a man of strong character, but Happy also could not help but cry for the absence of Issei. Issei, a boy considered the perverted beast of Kuoh, along with his friends Matsuda and Motohama. Everyone despised him for being the biggest perverts in the academy. Even my best friend Koori Murayama was always the same sermon she gave me. Why did you notice that pervert? He would tell me every day. She would never understand my reasons for noticing Issei, but I still had the support of my best friend. I wanted to invite him to the kendo club several times under the pretext of disciplining him. But every time I saw him near me, all I could think of was to shout something at him that he didn't deserve and run away from there. But everything went to waste when I learned that Issei had entered the occult club led by the two One-East Samus of Kuoh, RIAS Gremory and Akino Himejima. It seemed that joining the club had made him reform in matters of his perversion, because I could see Issei talking respectfully towards his senpais, the academy mascot Kaneko Tuju, also the so-called church trio, Zenobia Quarta, Irina Shidu and Asia Argento. I felt enormous gratitude that Issei was slowly reforming, but I also felt jealous that he smiled kindly at them and not at me. When I found out that Issei HYOUDO was officially RIAS Gremory's boyfriend, my heart broke. I cried all day because, due to my indecision, I had lost my Issei. I had won him over, RIAS Gremory, fairly and squarely. But hours after the announcement of the engagement, what happened is what has me in this deplorable emotional condition. Young man mysteriously disappears, revealed a newspaper where a photo of Issei appeared in the foreground. I wanted to deny it. I went to the HYOUDO residence and Issei's parents confirmed it to me. He had disappeared. I had asked about RIAS Gremory. I also knew that the entire occult club lived with the HYOUDO, but Issei's parents had said that since the day of the disappearance, they had left the residence. It just smells like something fishy here. I feel like RIAS Gremory and the occult club have something to do with HYOUDO Issei's disappearance, and I'll find out until I get to the final consequences. Normal narration. The Kuoh Academy school day had ended and Kates was practicing kendo with the other girls in the club. Kates, you haven't put any effort into training, said a girl from the club. Huh? Said the pink-haired girl with a downcast look. Do you have something worrying you or keeping you from concentrating? Said another girl from the club. Murayama saw how the girls cornered her friend and decided to act. Girls, whatever has Yui in that state is something very personal, and she is not obligated to share it. You have to respect her in that sense. Hi, the girls from the club said somewhat resignedly, leaving Kates alone. Thanks, friend, said Yui with a sad smile. I know that Issei's case has you like this, Murayama said very quietly so that only her friend could hear her, but you'll see that he will appear sooner or later. I hope so, said Kates, but suddenly a door opened revealing one of the princes of Kuoh. Excuse me, is Kates Yui here? Said Kiba with his Prince Charming smile. Kaya, the kendo girls shouted. Here I am, said Yui, without spirits. President RIAS Gremory wants to see you, Kiba said politely. Please come with me. Yui Kates went out at Kiba's call, and that way she would take the opportunity to find out something about Issei. Kiba led Kates to the old building of the occult club. They both entered through the wooden door, and there were RIAS Gremory, Akino Himejima, Asia Argento, Zenobia Quarta, Irina Shidu, Gasper Vladi, Professor Rossweiss and Ravel Phoenix, the members of said club, looking at her with kind eyes, but the pinkette knew that they were plotting something behind those innocent sheep faces. Welcome to the club, Yui Kates, said RIAS with a calm smile. How can she be calm if she knows her boyfriend is missing? The pink-haired woman thought angrily. Thank you. Do you know why I called you Kate-san? RIAS said, still without losing her smile. The pink-haired woman denied. Well, first of all, Yui Kate, do you believe in the supernatural? Are you referring to demons, angels and mythological beings like minotaurs, elves and so on? Kate said seriously. That's right, said RIAS. I'll play along. Thought Kate. Yes, I believe it. Who told you that information? Gremory said interestedly, dangerously getting up from her desk and looking at the pink-haired girl. The latter was not intimidated by Gremory. HYOUDO Issei, said Kate without hesitation. Everyone's faces changed to one of seriousness and anger at the mention of Issei. Well, Kate-san, as you know, we are demons, said RIAS while spreading her demon wings along with the other members of the club, and we have a proposition. I'm listening, RIAS-san, said Kate without losing her seriousness. Join my entourage, RIAS said, smiling. Become a demon, and you will have a life full of luxuries. Serve my noble cause and that of the Gremory family. So Issei had become a demon, thought Kate. So Kate-san, are you joining my entourage or not? RIAS said proudly. Before answering, I want to ask you something, said Kate without losing her seriousness. What do you want to ask me? RIAS said seriously. What happened to HYOUDO Issei? Said Kate. At the mention, the whole club snorted in annoyance. RIAS had lost the smile she had and showed one of disgust. Why are you interested in knowing? RIAS said, annoyed. Do you want me to answer your question? Kate said, in the same way, my condition is that I want to know where HYOUDO Issei is. Everything was a tense silence before what Kate had said. More respect for RIAS, Anasama, Asia shouted. You don't know who you're messing with, said Zenobia, glaring at Yui. I knew something wasn't right. I mention Issei to them and suddenly they get angry. Thought Yui, he's supposed to be RIAS-san's boyfriend. Shouldn't she be worried about him? Worried? Said the redhead with a mocking smile. HYOUDO Issei was a mere ephemeral existence in my entourage. His useful life with us ended. We got rid of him, said RIAS without the slightest concern. Kate opened her eyes in horror at what RIAS. Gremory said. Of course, a little theater helps minimize suspicions. Drama above all, my favorite genre. But it turned out so well that I convinced the idiots of her parents, and the idiots of the MAOUs. RIAS continued, and the whole club laughed at RIAS's evilness. And how do you know about the whole crime? She said while snapping her fingers and saw that her entire entourage had summoned their weapons. I can't leave you alive. Excuse me, Kate-san, RIAS said with feigned pain. Kill her. RIAS. Gremory's followers launched an attack against the pink-haired girl. She was shocked that the demons were going to kill her. She just closed her eyes. Issei, at least I'll accompany you to the other world, said Kate. But suddenly, the demons had been knocked down, and were being held down by an energy that kept them on the ground. But curiously, Kate wasn't affected. What's happening? Akino screamed, unable to get up. I can't get up. Irina screamed. Kate saw how the occult club was being subdued by that mysterious gravitational energy, and suddenly saw in the window how the sky turned red and the same moon that had barely risen at dusk turned bloody red. Pieces of Eden Satan's Arrival video plays, but a familiar voice was heard in the club that left the members of this club terrified. I will not let another innocent person fall into your hands, RIAS. Gremory shouted that voice, and then Kate-Yui's shadow extended until it formed a stain, and from there came out a terrifying-looking being expelling a terrifying aura, making the club members begin to feel terror. But Kate was very shocked at the being that guarded her integrity. Who are you? Said the pink-haired girl. Call me Darkrai, the shadowy being said telepathically, looking at her with aquamarine eyes. Kate could recognize the voice. Issei? Thought the pink-haired girl, shocked. Chapter. The nightmare begins. The attack on the occult club. The shadowy being that protected Yui. Kate confronted RIAS. Gremory's entourage. Who are you? RIAS shouted at the shadowy being, who remained silent without stopping looking at the redhead. RIAS. Gremory has told you who you are? Rossweiss shouted now, beginning to emanate Nordic energy in order to frighten the shadowy being. But she didn't succeed unless he looked closely at Kate. Don't leave me, Darkrai said telepathically to Yui. I will protect you from these demons. Yui, still in shock, nodded at her gloomy hero. RIAS began to get annoyed at being ignored by her enemy and began to create a sphere of destruction. I said, who are you? RIAS shouted furiously, about to launch the sphere of destruction, but Darkrai was faster and threw a black sphere at the redhead, impacting her. Black gap, said Darkrai very low. Ah! RIAS screamed and immediately fell asleep. Baochu! Shouted the members of the occult club, Asia went to see her Onisama, trying to wake her up, something she couldn't do as she asleep. But suddenly, Gaia! RIAS screamed in pain while holding her chest, to be exact, her heart, and in that moment the club members saw how a dark energy began to surround the Gremory, and that energy began to circulate towards the shadowy being. "Leave Boucher alone!" Zenobia shouted, having Durandal in her hands ready to connect a knife blow on Darkrai, but he released energy in his hands until he created some shadowy claws and stopped Zenovia's attack. "What? Impossible!" the blue-haired girl shouted. But her worst mistake was that she looked directly into Darkray's eyes and they began to shine a reddish color, ending with the blue-haired girl being expelled with a shadowy wave, stamping her on one of the wall's shadow pulse. "Zenobia!" Kiba shouted, but double black gap, said Darkrai. At that, Darkrai threw two black spheres, one at Zenobia and the other at Kiba, who could do little against the attack of the sinister being, both knights falling asleep and suffering the same fate as their mistress. "Aya!" Both knights screamed in the middle of their sleep. Zenobia grabbed her head while HYOUDO held his abdomen, while the members of the occult club who remained awake watched this in terror. Kates watched in amazement as her protector easily defeated them. "We have to save the others." Rosswise shouted, "Ravel, let's use your fire magic and attack at the same time." "Hi!" said Ravel and created two fireballs while Ross prepared an ice attack. "Ready?" Ross nods, and just as they were about to launch the attack, Darkrai launched his strategy and began to multiply, surrounding the occult club double team. "Damn it!" Ross shouted and launched his attack at a Darkrai, but they only saw that it was a clone. "Cancellation," said the shadowy being and launched a white ray towards Ross and Ravel. "HHHH!" both of them shouted, having launched their attacks. They were slightly stunned and tried to use magic, but, "No, my magic, I can't do magic!" Ross shouted. "I can't do magic either!" Ravel screamed in horror at this. The occult club felt a terror as great as having faced an evil dragon. "Double dark breach," said Darkrai and threw said black sphere towards Rosswise and Ravel, sending them to sleep and suffer the same fate as their fallen companions. "No!" Ross and Ravel screamed in their dreams. Ross hugged himself protectively and adopted a fetal position, while Ravel grabbed her face as if she had seen something horrifying. Kaneko and Gasper took a fighting stance. "Jiwai-kun, activate your sacred gear!" Kaneko shouted while the vampire did what the Nikomata ordered and managed to paralyze Darkrai and his copies. "I will attack." Kaneko went against the shadowy being and went to hit the clones that one by one disappeared until the last one, with a triumphant face, and the Nikomata went to hit but disappeared. "Where is it?" Kaneko said, looking around. Akino and Asia also saw where the shadowy being was until, "Oh!" Gasper screamed, and they all saw that Darkrai had him by the neck and started to look directly into his eyes. They shone reddish hypnosis, making Gasper fall asleep, and quickly with his other hand he touched Gasper's chest, and "Dream Eater," Darkrai whispered, and then he started to absorb Gasper's energy. "Ah!" Gasper shouted. Everyone watched as Darkrai stole the little vampire's life energy, and he could only move, trying to free himself from his victimizer. "Gasper, Jiwai-kun!" shouted the members of the Gremory clan, still awake. Minute later, Gasper stopped screaming. Darkrai throws him to the side of the building as if he were a rag doll, but they saw that the black energy that plagued RIAS, Zenobia, Kiba, Ross and Ravel did not cover him. Something bad was happening to Gasper. "Dark One, I will eliminate you in the name of Lord Michael," Irina shouted, showing her wings, but they saw that and "Oh, my wings!" Irina shouted, seeing that her shining white wings had turned black as coal. Why have I fallen? Why?" Darkrai decided to end this pathetic and pitiful scene. "Dark Gap," whispered the shadowy being, throwing another sphere towards the now fallen Irina, putting her to sleep and causing her to suffer the same fate. "Damn you!" Akino and Kaneko shouted, launching a sacred lightning bolt and senjutsu against Darkrai, but he repeated the same with Rosswise and Ravel multiplied, surrounding them, and "Nullification," Darkrai whispered, launching said white beam at Akino and Kaneko. "I can't use magic senjutsu!" Akino and Kaneko screamed in horror. "Ominous wind," Darkrai whispered and launched a powerful torrent against Akino, smashing her against one of the walls. "Akino-senpai," Kaneko shouted, but "Sure wave," Darkrai whispered, and then the being raised his arms and a ball of energy and threw it at Kaneko, which hit her in the abdomen as well, slamming her against a wall in the classroom. Double Dark Breach, Darkrai whispered and launched said attack on the fallen half and the Nikomata, leaving them in a deep sleep but suffering damage in it. The only one who remained awake was Asia. She was terrified of the shadowy being that stared at her. She wanted to run but she couldn't. She was paralyzed with fear. Darkrai slowly approached the ex-nun. She showed pure terror in her facial features until the ex-nun and the shadowy being were face to face. Boo! Darkrai sarcastically scared Asia, who went to the bathroom and ended up fainting. Pathetic, said Darkrai while the dark energy surrounded Asia, suffering like the others. At that, Darkrai begins to approach Kates. She takes a defensive position against him. Don't be afraid, Darkrai said telepathically. I came to rescue you from them. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. Kates stopped having the defensive position. But, are you Issei? Said the pink-haired girl, trying to touch the dark being. But, all in good time, he said telepathically to Kates. While using hypnosis, he put her to sleep as she fell. He catches her and carries her in princess form. I won't let Gremory lay a hand on you. You won't have the same fate as me, Kates-san. Before leaving, he left a note in RIAS's hand and disappeared from there into the shadows with Kates in his arms. Time skip. Kates' family home. PM. Yui was waking up in her bedroom from the dream she had, but remembered what she had witnessed. It was a dream, a bad dream, said Kates, rubbing the temples of his head, and then he went to the dining room where his parents were already having dinner. Oh, Yui-chan, you're awake now, said her mother, smiling. And yes, Oka-sama, said Yui. That's good, my daughter, said the father, eating a steamed shrimp. Gyanza, a boy came to drop you off at our house. He said he saw you fainted at school and he went to the trouble of coming to drop you off at our house. Don't overexert yourself in training. Oh, okay, said Kates, somewhat confused. By the way, said Yui's mother, he left me this envelope about the boy and asked me to give it to you as soon as you woke up, said Yui's mother, handing her said envelope. Thank you, Oka-sama, said Yui, receiving the envelope, and they proceeded to have dinner. After eating her food, Yui quickly went to her room to open the envelope, thinking it was a love letter from some boy or secret admirer. But, dear Yui, Kates, I'll just tell you, what you saw was not a dream. Kates-san, don't ever accept RIAS Gremory's entourage. Otherwise, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Once you accept, you'll be a slave serving her and her cronies. I'll be watching over you from the shadows anyway. Darkrai. Reading the letter, Yui felt her heart race at the revelation she'd read. Demons, angels, fallen angels, everything is real. But one thing that made her happy was that she had a sentinel guarding her from the shadows. But the question is, why did RIAS Gremory notice her? Was there something special about her that caught his attention? She wondered all this while ignoring her shadow as it began to take the form of Darkrai as a sign that it would be watching over her. In the occult club, audio from the video plays. After the attack, all the club members began to wake up. They felt weak and with difficulty were able to get up. Are you all okay? RIAS said, panting. They nodded with difficulty, and then RIAS sees the note in his hand and begins to read it. I send you an ultimatum, RIAS Gremory. If you have the asshole to recruit someone for your new pawn, one by one of your royalty members, they will die without you interfering or getting into it. I will not allow you to harm someone like you did to me. If you don't see your bishop, how will they be if you dare recruit innocent people? Your greed to be the empress in the raiding games will lead you to eternal perdition. At that note, RIAS paled in terror and saw Asia still trying to get up, but Gasper! RIAS screamed, and then she saw that Gasper hadn't gotten up. The redhead quickly went towards her bishop. Gasper, react, Gasper! The redhead screamed in alarm, tears starting to spring from her eyes. But she could only see how the vampire's head and his body hung without any signs of body heat or any vital signs. No, no! Asia screamed, crying. Gasper! Zenobia screamed, devastated. Giwai-kun! Kaneko screamed, very hurt. The other members of the club wept bitterly at the death of Gasper Vladi. Gasper, I swear that being will pay with his life! RIAS screamed, hugging the corpse of her bishop. RIAS Gremory still had in her mind the sinister being who had the audacity to confront her and take away her next pawn, attack her and take the life of her bishop. In that, she remembers someone who destroyed herself on a whim and to fulfill her goal of becoming the empress of the raiding games. Issei, no, I don't think so. He must be locked in that damn dimension, RIAS said to herself, while she continued to hug Gasper's corpse. RIAS's entourage mourned Gasper's death as the night began to rain heavily. But what the redhead didn't know was that the worst of her nightmares had begun. Chapter: The Last Night the Angel Cried. Kuoh Academy. Kuoh Academy was in mourning upon learning of the sudden death of Gaspar Vladi. The funeral was held in front of the occult club, where all the students gave their condolences to RIAS and the club members. But everything got worse when Gaspar's best friend, Valerie Teeps, arrived. When she saw the wooden coffin and revealed Gaspar's sleeping face, she couldn't help but shed tears and the pain in her heart. "No, Gaspar!" Valerie screamed as the coffin collapsed, losing the strength in her legs while Kiba held her. RIAS couldn't contain the pain of losing her precious bishop. It was a very sad and desolate atmosphere in the occult club, but in her mind she couldn't get rid of the image of the shadowy being that killed Gaspar. "RIAS," said a red-haired man sitting next to her. "Ani-sama," RIAS said, surprised to see the MAOU of the underworld. What can I offer you here? I know you're going through a difficult time. First Issei disappears now, Gaspar Sirzechs said. When he mentions Issei, the redhead gets nervous. Any idea what's going on? No, Ani-sama," RIAS said, very nervous at Sirzechs' question. He just limits himself to raising an eyebrow. "Well, if you want to talk at any time, I'll always be at your disposal," Sirzechs said, leaving the club. "If I tell him what I did to Issei, I'll be in serious trouble," RIAS thought. "Don't think you'll get away with it," said a voice that immediately RIAS unbuttoned part of her school blouse where she had a pendant with an emerald that shone when she spoke. "Sooner or later the truth of what you did to my partner will be known." "Silence, Ddraig," said RIAS, smiling evilly at the emerald. "No one will know what happened to HYOUDO Issei. In the end I will be victorious, and no one will know what I did to him." "I would not celebrate." "Stupid girl," says Ddraig. "There is a person who knows the truth since you told him, as if it were something normal and worthy of pride, and that person is Isekai'ed." RIAS opened her eyes, and what the red dragon had said was true. "That is why I must hurry to recruit her," said RIAS, "so that she does not spill the beans. Subjecting her to my nobility and consenting her will make her do things at my will." "I doubt it very much, Gremory," said Ddraig. "Remember that Isekai'ed is being protected by that being of darkness called Darkrai." "So her name is Darkrai," RIAS said. "I don't care. I will recruit Isekai'ed whether you like it or not." "Do whatever you want from me," said Ddraig, "because one by one of your entourage will die like the vampire Vladi, and you do not know how much I will enjoy seeing you cry for the death of your allies." "You will be," said RIAS furiously, throwing a sphere of the power of destruction at the emerald, but it didn't even scratch it. RIAS was very angry at what the red dragon said, and her priority was to have Isekai'ed on her side so that she would not reveal the truth about Issei's disappearance. "Irina!" RIAS shouted, to which the new fallen angel came out with a sad face. "Stop crying. Your white or black wings are beautiful. I need you to bring Isekai'ed to the club now." "Yes, Bucho," said Irina, discouraged, leaving the club to look for the pink-haired girl Rome. Yui was looking at the window admiring the trees from her school bench until someone interrupted her. "Isekai'ed," said Irina, "Shidorias-senpai is calling you to the occult club right now." The pink-haired girl glared at the brunette. "Tell RIAS-senpai that I'm not interested in being her bore, like the others in your famous club," said Kai'd, leaving everyone speechless, including Murayama, by the way she spoke about RIAS. "Gremory." "What did you say?" shouted Irina, and in that Irina slapped the pink-haired girl. "RIAS Gremory is requesting you right now, and I'll take her with you even if it means pulling your scalp," said a furious Irina. "Enough, Shida," shouted a stern voice reflecting Sona Sidri, looking seriously at the brunette accompanied by Tsubaki and Tomo Meguri. "If Isekai'd doesn't want to go, don't force her. And that's why you earned a week's suspension for your violent behavior." Irina couldn't believe what Sona Sidri was telling her and ended up getting up, gathering her things and leaving the classroom and the school. Meanwhile, with Sona and Yui. "Are you okay, Kai'd-san?" said Sona, holding out her hand. "Hi, Kaicho," said Kai'd, accepting the help of the student council president. "Anything, don't hesitate to ask me," said Sona, giving her a confident smile. To classes, everyone now. Everyone went to sit down as teacher Rossweiss began to teach classes. The pinkette occasionally glared at Rossweiss since she was a participant in Issei's disappearance. "You did well, Yui-chan," said a voice in her head. "Darkrai, I'm seriously afraid that those damn things will hurt me or do something to my family and friends," Yui said mentally. "Don't worry, I'm always watching over you from the shadows," said Darkrai's voice. "I will kill whoever dares to hurt you." Yui smiled calmly at what her dark sentinel said and continued in class. Time skip. Destroyed Church of Kuoh PM. Audio from the video plays. Irina was walking in the ruins of the church until she found a large broken crucifix, the result of the fight between Issei and Rainier. Irina sees the crucified Jesus on the cross and immediately kneels down and begins to pray. "Lord, why did my wings turn black? What did I do to deserve this?" said Irina, crying. "What did I do wrong?" Jesus Christ remained in his place until a voice rang out. I should ask you that, Irina should have said that voice with a calm tone. Do you remember days ago in the occult hall? Do you remember HYOUDO Issei? In that, Irina remembers when RIAS Gremory removes the boosted gear from Issei. Rosswise opens a portal to an unknown dimension. Issei was cruelly beaten by Aquino, Kiba, Kaneko, Ravel, Rosswise, Gasper, Zenobia, and by Irina herself, smiling with pleasure all the club at the pain of the brown-haired. No, Issei HYOUDO deserved that, always recognized for everything supernatural. They have never given credit for what we do. Irina shouted angrily, just remembering Issei's face. So Irina Hyoudou, let me tell you that the reason for your fall was caused by the sin of betrayal, said the voice in front of a horrified brunette. Did you think you did right in betraying who you considered your friend? Irina began to cry and began to remember all the good times she spent with Issei. He always gave Irina a sweet smile. No, what did I do? Irina shouted while hugging herself in the fetal position. I killed my friend, I killed my loved one, all for following RIAS's and the others' bad advice. I have sinned. Irina screamed, I don't deserve to be an angel. How willing are you to make amends for your actions, said that same voice. Anything. While crying, I want my Issei, my darling. Then said the voice, while the church felt heavy in some way, and a power subdued Irina in the church, and from the crucifix a gap opened, and from it 2 black claws came out. Opening said gap, coming out that shadowy being that killed Gasper. You will die. Darkrai screamed, dark gap. The being of darkness threw the black sphere at her. Irina tried to repel it with Excalibur Mimic, but the sphere passed through the sacred sword, impacting Irina, leaving her asleep again. Nightmare, said Darkrai while his soul entered Irina's body. Irina's nightmare. Irina was in heaven with her white wings going to Michael's call, but all the angels looked at her with bad eyes, which for a moment she ignored, but little by little she was weighing the looks of disapproval, until she arrived with Michael accompanied by Gabriel and Raphael. Michael-sama, to what do you owe the honor of your call? He said with his typical smile, something that the Overlord did not return in a reciprocal way. Irina, you have been called because at this moment you stopped being my ace, said Michael before a horrified Irina. You will meet your replacement. Come in, Issei-kun, said Michael, while from a magic circle appeared the brown-haired man who looked coldly at the now ex-angel. No, Michael-sama. It's a joke, it's a damn joke, said Irina, terrified. It isn't, said Michael, and with that, with sacred magic, he removes the Ace of Spades card from Irina and proceeds to install the ace on Issei's, causing him to release his angel wings. Why? Shouted Irina. Don't you remember what they did to Issei-kun? Said Gabriel, looking at Irina with disgust, sending him into the distortion of the world and celebrating the misfortune of Michael's now new ace. No, I'm sorry, darling. Shouted Irina. A sorry is not enough with the pain I had in my heart when you were a participant in my unjust condemnation, said Issei, looking at Irina with hatred. Thank RIAS Gremory, because having played along with her cost you your position in the brave saints. And at that the sky began to turn red and the fire that consumed the clouds appeared. Michael and Gabriel smiled maliciously at a horrified Irina. They began to disappear, leaving only Irina with Issei. He began to transform into Darkrai. It will cost you your life, outside of Irina's body. Ah! Irina screamed, and then Darkrai began to take her soul and devoured it little by little, and with that Darkrai finished devouring Irina Hyoudou's soul and proceeded to leave the church through the darkness, leaving the corpse of the former brave saint intact. The next day, Irina's parents went out to search for their daughter throughout the city until they arrived at the church, where they found the worst surprise. Irina! Shouted Reverend Hyoudou, and then he carries his daughter, but she does not respond. Her eyes lost their shine. She was white, and in her lifeless eyes a last tear fell. No, daughter! Irina's mother screamed, hugging the now corpse of Irina Hyoudou with her husband. Irina's inert face only reflected regret for having failed her love, and all thanks to RIAS Gremory, who sentenced her to death for betrayal. Chapter Virgin. Occult Club Room. The Gremory clan was chatting and thinking of ways to convince Isekai'ed to join the clan, and at the same time how to convince her to hand over the dark being who killed Gasper. Hey, Zenobia was late to arrive, said RIAS. That's true, she's supposed to always arrive early, said Ravel, but then the blue-haired girl arrived. She was crying her eyes out. Zenobia, what's wrong with you? Said Aquino. Irina sniff. Irina is dead, screamed the former exorcist with all the pain in her heart, collapsing in the room. Everyone couldn't believe what was happening. First Gasper, now Irina dies. Ravel and Asia go out to comfort Zenobia, although they too were shed tears for their dead partner. Aquino was beginning to worry a lot. Kiba and Rosweiss kept their heads down in helplessness, and knowing that their partner had died, but RIAS had a face full of hatred and pure anger. "Damn you, Darkrai!" RIAS shouted with all the pain and fury she felt at that moment. Shida Residence, PM. Irina's Shida's funeral was being celebrated. All the students entered to give their condolences to the Shida couple for the death of their only daughter. The most affected was Zenobia, who cried with great pain in front of her best friend and did not want to stop hugging the coffin where Irina rested in peace. The entire occult club mourned the loss of an invaluable companion. After all the students of the Kuoh Academy left, the supernaturals led by Michael and Gabriel arrived. They had arrived at the residence lamenting the death of Irina. "I'm so sorry," said Michael to the Reverend Shidu. "Thank you, Michael-sama," said the Reverend. Then they proceeded to bury Irina's body in the Kuoh cemetery. Gasper was buried in Romania. Zenobia could not digest that her best friend had died. "Irina, I swear on Durandal that I will find your murderer and kill him in your name," Zenobia shouted angrily before Irina's cold tombstone. Kate's residence, PM. Yui was about to put on her pajamas in the mirror when she saw Kyaa. Darkrai, the pink-haired woman, shouted as she saw the shadowy being reflected in the mirror. "Excuse me," Darkrai said, "but this is the only way I can communicate with you at the moment." "Hey Darkrai, can I ask you something?" Kate said. "Go ahead," he said through the mirror. "Were you Irina Shida's murderer?" Kate said, swallowing at what he said. There was a rather awkward silence, and then Darkrai replied. "I would be lying to you if I denied it," Darkrai said, to which Kate paled. "And if you ask why I killed her, I will reveal it to you. Just bring your forehead closer to the mirror. I promise I won't hurt you." Kate agreed to Darkrai's request and pressed her forehead against the mirror, and at that, Darkrai's eyes shone aquamarine green, to which Kate had access to the memories of someone she knew. "Where am I?" said Kate. "You are inside my memory," said Darkrai's voice. "Pay attention." In that, Kate's consciousness lands in a place she didn't want to see, the occultism club room, and in it the club members were talking until a certain brown-haired man arrives who made the Pinkette's heart beat 1,000 times an hour. "HYOUDO, Issei." RIAS said Issei, but noticed that all the members were looking at him with hostility. "Something's wrong, PUAGGG," said the brown-haired man, but Kaneko had hit him in the abdomen. "Shut up," said Kaneko. "HYOUDO, Issei, because of you, damn, all my achievements are overshadowed by your mere existence," said RIAS, very angry. "Everyone talks about HYOUDO, Issei the Security, but never about RIAS Gremory or any of your classmates." Issei was still catching his breath from Kaneko's blow. "What is happening to everyone?" Issei said, panting, but then a lightning bolt from Aquino hit him. Gyhhhh. Kate was horrified to see everything they were doing to Issei. She wanted to intervene, but she couldn't, since it's just a simple memory. An hour of pure torture passed, where Issei was subjected to various punishments by all the members of the club, to Kate's horror. "Rosweiss now," RIAS said, and then the albino began to recite, and then a black and gray portal appeared. "Before sending you to that dimension, I will extract Draig's pawn pieces, and I will be the new Security." "Damn you," Issei said, dying, and then RIAS began to extract Ddraig from him. "Iyhhhhh. Partner!" Ddraig shouted. "Damn you, Gremory! Shut up and serve me, Red Dragon!" RIAS shouted, trying to absorb the emerald where Ddraig was sealed, but he rejected it. "But why don't you accept me, a high-class demon?" "I only serve those who are born with me," sealed Ddraig said, "and another thing is that I activate a seal with dragonic magic so that demons and repulsive beings like you can't access my powers. Not even Ophis Ouroboros will be able to destroy the seal." RIAS was enraged at what Ddraig did. "But you'll see how your dear partner will be lost in that dimension where death is breathed," RIAS said, smiling at Draig's emerald. "Guys, send Issei to his new home. In that, Irina and Zenobia are the ones who are going to throw Issei into the portal." "See you never!" shouted the ex-Issei's girlfriends with an evil grimace. But Issei only told them, "You will die, I will kill you!" Issei shouted as he was thrown into the portal where Rosweiss closed it. The occult club members began to laugh sickly at what they did to Issei, while Yui couldn't believe what the Onisama whom Kuoh respected so much had done. End of flashback. Kate was back in her bedroom, but she was sweating and crying at the same time. "Darkrai no Issei," said Kate, looking with teary eyes at the sinister being. If only I knew, sniff, I would have gone for you and avoided your condemnation, sniff." "It was inevitable," said Darkrai. "If it hadn't happened today, It would have happened tomorrow or any of these days. Then the deaths of Gasper Vladi and Irina Hyoudou are more than justified, said Kates. Not only that he stole their souls, said Darkrai, they will not rest in peace until I gather at least of the souls that condemned me to this pitiful existence. Once I achieve my goal with the pure essence of their souls, I will once again have the human figure that I once had. Kates now saw why Issei killed the members of the occult club. You should go to sleep, said Darkrai as he faded into the mirror, giving Yui Kate's reflection again. We'll talk tomorrow. Yui obeys the orders of her dark sentry and proceeds to go to sleep. RIAS residence PM. All the members of the occult club had gone to sleep, except for one, Zenobia, who was still crying over the death of her friend Irina. Why? Said the blue-haired woman, looking at a photo where she and Irina were kissing someone who had a photo of Vala stuck on Issei's body. We're supposed to have strong children from Vala in that. The lights go out, alarming the blue-haired woman. She feels a macabre and heavy aura. Strong children, said a voice that terrified Zenobia. The only thing you'll get are children, but with the mental retardation that you will inherit them. Who are you? Shouted Zenobia. Come on, Zenobia, did you forget me? Said the same voice, mocking her. You had made me the promise that we were going to have strong children, but you did me a big favor when you saw the disgusting person you are. RIAS Baochu. Shouted Zenobia. Shout whatever you want, she won't come to help you, said the voice. It's time for you to settle accounts with me, Zenobia. Shouted the voice while Darkrai came out of the darkness confronting the blue-haired girl. You killed Irina, Zenobia shouted as she summoned Durandal and brandished it against her enemy, but Darkrai grabbed the sacred sword with his bare hands. But why? Easy, said Darkrai. Durandal no longer responds to you like before since you committed a sin a few days ago. I don't understand. What was it? Said Zenobia. Do you remember HYOUDO Issei? Said Darkrai, and in that Zenobia remembers the day they sent the brown-haired boy to the portal of the distortion world. He deserved that punishment, and besides he wouldn't give me strong offspring, that's why it was better to send him to that place. Said Zenobia. Well, Durandal rejects you because you committed the sin of betrayal, said Darkrai, and in that, he takes Durandal from Zenobia's possession and brandishes the sacred sword against the blue-haired girl. She flew to one of the walls, and in that Zenobia sees something that horrified her. Darkrai had Durandal in his possession that shone with all the blue glow that characterized him, and it seems Durandal has accepted me as a bearer. No, no, and no! Zenobia screamed, seeing her precious sword in the hands of her friend's murderer, and then she goes to snatch it away, but Darkrai hits her with it on the side where it wasn't sharp, slamming it against the wall again. Dark Gap! Darkrai screamed, throwing a black sphere at the blue-haired girl, putting her to sleep instantly. Nightmare, said Darkrai, and just like Irina, Darkrai's soul entered the blue-haired girl's mind. Zenobia's nightmare. A beautiful blue-haired girl could be seen dressing like a real housewife preparing food. Zenobia, are you here? Said a voice she recognized. Griselda, Zenobia said, seeing her tutor while she was accompanied by a child. Oka-chan! Said a blue-haired child. He was wearing the uniform and hugged Zenobia. Zen is back. Welcome, Zen, said Zenobia. Did you have a good time with Oba-chan? Hi, said the boy. But when will your husband return? Said Griselda to Zenobia, but then the door opens. Hello, is anyone here? Said a voice that Zenobia recognized. She was happy and immediately went out to greet him. Vala! Shouted Zenobia excitedly, but she sees that Vala was accompanied by Lavinia Remy. That infuriates the blue-haired girl. Vala, what is she doing with you? Shouted the blue-haired girl. What's wrong with you? Said Vala. You know that I'm married to Lavinia. English. So am I part of your harem? Zenobia said hopefully. Ha 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 ha. No, Vala said, mocking the blue-haired girl. I have only married Lavinia. Your husband is Tadaima! Shouted a voice that horrified Zenobia. Issei Otasama, Griselda Quarta and Zen shouted upon seeing HYOUDO Issei enter the house. Well, I'm leaving, Vala said. Lavinia, we must feed our daughter, she said while the blonde-haired girl nodded and hugged Vala. No, 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 not you! Zenobia shouted, pointing at Issei. You are in the distortion world, we sent you there. But that happened years ago, said Griselda, confused. Issei, and you got married and had Zen. Zenobia furiously takes a knife and proceeds to attack Issei. Die! Shouted the blue-haired girl, but he gets in the way of the attack. Zen! Shouted Issei, and Griselda, seeing that Zenobia's son had gotten in the way of his mother's attack on his father. Slash! The knife penetrated the little boy's heart. Why, Kasama? Said Zen, crying while Issei and Griselda held Zenobia's dying son. The blue-haired girl was horrified at what she did, and then, slash! Zenobia saw that something had stabbed her, and saw Zencorda stabbing her mother's abdomen, and proceeded to repeat the same situation. Slash. 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 Zenobia was horrified to see how her son was being stabbed. Why then, Zenobia said sadly and shedding tears, seeing the little blue-haired boy still with the wound in his chest. Because of your actions I thank God that I was not born into a stupid, volatile woman, all thanks to the fact that you sent my father to the distortion world, and now one by one he will kill all of RIAS Gremory's entourage. He ha 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 ha. Zencorda laughed at Zenovia's terror. You will pay for your sins, Zenobia, Griselda said, now smiling like a psychopath. And then Issei gets up and begins to change form until he finds Darkrai looking at her coldly. Zenobia could not face Darkrai due to the pain of the wounds caused by Zencorda. Come here, my son, Darkrai said. I assure you that you will be born in the womb of a woman worthy of being your mother. No. Griselda? Hey, Anata said the Queen of Hearts, hugging Darkrai and giving him a kiss. I will eagerly await your birth. Little Zen, said Griselda Corda, to which Zen nodded vigorously. Zenobia saw that scene with pain. Issei, please forgive me, give me that strong son that I long for so much, Zenobia implored. No English. Because virgin you will die, Darkrai shouted. Outside of Zenovia's body, Darkrai begins to devour Zenovia's soul. Issei, the soul shouted before being consumed by the sinister being, leaving Zenovia's corpse on the ground, and proceeds to leave there, entering the darkness. The next day, everyone was having breakfast at RIAS's residence, but they noticed that Zenovia had not come down. Asia, go get Zenobia or else her rice will get cold, RIAS said, to which her bishop agreed to call her partner, but a scream was heard from the blue-haired girl's bedroom, and in that the entire Gremory entourage quickly went up to see a heartbreaking scene. Zenobia is dead, Asia shouted, crying while holding her friend's head. No, 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 RIAS shouted. Everyone was sad and horrified at Zenovia's corpse, whose face was full of suffering and regret. But that was just the beginning of what was to come for RIAS Gremory's entourage. Chapter Project Nightmare. Zenovia's death had already raised red alert in all factions, so they called a meeting of the alliance leaders since they did not understand what was specifically attacking the members of RIAS Gremory's clan or her allies. First it was Issei-kun, then Gaspar-chan, followed by Irina's Hyoudou, and now Zenobia Corda. What the hell is going on? Said Sirzechs, already very impatient. We still don't know who killed my ace like the others? Said Michael, a little angry about the fate of his beloved Irina. What we know is that a dark being, said Seraphal, taking some leaves and showing in a hologram the figure of Darkrai that has the ability to sleep through a sphere that launches from his hands, and that this being appeared after the disappearance of Sniff-I-chan, said Seraphal. At the moment of mentioning Issei, she could not contain her tears because the most powerful woman in the underworld is in love with Issei, and his sudden disappearance affected her. Gabriel and Penemu went out to calm Seraphal because they also shared feelings for the brown-haired. All the leaders dedicated a gesture of solidarity to Seraphal. But their way of killing is the most mysterious, since usually when our people die, they become particles of light until they disappear. But with Gaspar, Irina and Zenobia it was not the case, said Ajuka. Maybe we are facing something that, despite our longevity in this world, we really don't know, said Odin. We must be careful, said Yasaka. Nor will we know how hostile this creature is. We must know more about that creature since it only attacks the members of my sister's clan and their possible allies. Therefore, Azazel, your mission will be to safeguard the lives of the members of the occult club and investigate that creature well, said Sirzechs seriously. Okay, said the former leader of the Fallen. And so the alliance leaders concluded the meeting. The next day, Isekai'ed had said goodbye to her parents to go to the academy, and immediately put on some hands-free headphones to hide said conversation with her dark sentinel. Darkrai, I have made a decision, Kate said. What did you think? Issei said in his mind. I have decided to support you in your revenge, the pink-haired woman said firmly. There was a rather uncomfortable silence for the female. Kate-san, Issei said in his mind. Tell me, Yui, said the blushing pink-haired girl. Huh? He said as if he didn't understand. Call me Yui and not by my last name. The pink-haired girl blushingly shouted to her sentry. Okay, Yui-chan, said the dark sentinel in his mind. And when you recover your human form you won't want to. I don't know, said Kate, turning red. What can I help you with? Issei said. Do you want to go on a date with me? The pink-haired girl shouted in such a way that everyone around her was stupefied by what the girl with the headphones said. Okay, Issei said in his mind. It's a promise, said Yui, smiling, and then she goes to school normally. But she didn't notice that a blonde was watching her, and after hearing what the pink-haired woman said, she decided to tell her mistress everything she heard. Timeskip. Occult Club Room, PM. RIAS had been notified by Kiba of the conversation Yui had with Darkrai, which made things more difficult for the redhead to recruit her. Damn it, said RIAS, biting her thumb out of nervousness. We must take more aggressive measures so that girl is submitted to my nobility. Kiba, you are allowed to use force to bring Isekai'ed to the classroom, even if it is necessary to cut off her legs and arms. Hi Bucho, said Kiba as he retreated in a magic circle. KUH Forest Upper Area, PM. Kai'ed headed out to the lookout to see the beautiful view that Kuoh offered. Hey Darkrai, can you see the same thing as me? Said Kai'ed, smiling. It's been a long time since I've been here, Issei said in his mind. Kai'ed, be careful, there's someone watching us behind your back. At that, Yui turns around and sees the trees. That essence is from Kiba's pretty boy, Darkrai said with noticeable disgust in his voice. Kiba HYOUDO, get out of there right now, shouted Isekai'ed. At that moment the blonde-haired boy comes out from behind some trees but with a sword in his hands. Isekai'ed, RIAS Gremory humbly asks you to join her nobility. Otherwise I will be forced to use force, said Kiba looking at her sharply. What a prince of Kuoh, being the obedient dog of a damn assassin, said Isekai'ed. Don't insult RIAS Gremory, Kiba said loudly, angrily. But Kiba couldn't utter a word. How was it possible that Isekai'ed, a normal human, knew what they did to Issei, and she is the Sekiryu'di? At that, he smiled sickly. Given what you told me, I have no choice but to take you with her by force, said Kiba and shot at the pink-haired girl. Give up. Kai'ed just closed her eyes and put her backpack in a defensive position when, clang, a clash of swords was heard. Kai'ed saw what happened and saw. Darkrai, shouted the pink-haired girl, happy to see that the sinister being carrying Durandal had knocked the sacred demonic sword out of Kiba's hands and hit the blonde in the chest with the blunt part of Durandal, sending him flying until he crashed into the trunk of a tree. Are you okay? Darkrai said to Kai'ed. The pink-haired girl nodded, and now Darkrai looked at the blonde Kiba HYOUDO. Of all the low things he could do, attacking a defenseless woman on the orders of that brat is the lowest you can fall. Shut up, Kiba shouted, his chest hurting. Damn murderer, I will kill you in the name of Gasper, Irina and Zenobia. Try it, said Darkrai, provoking the blonde, who took out two sacred demonic swords and went out to attack Darkrai, who kept Durandal inside him and captured it with his bare hands and gave Kiba a strong headbutt in the face and ended up throwing him again to the trees with a shadowy pulse. Evil, damn, now I'll get serious, said Kiba while invoking a large magic circle rain of swords. At that moment thousands of swords, knives, sabers and bladed weapons of all kinds came out of that magic circle with the aim of harming Darkrai, and at that moment, slash, clash, plock, trash, Kiba's weapons had hit their target, and Darkrai could be seen being pierced by thousands of weapons all over his body. No! Darkrai! Kai'ed screamed, horrified as she saw her protector being pierced by thousands of weapons in his body. I made it, said Kiba, tired now. Kai'ed-san, you will come with me for good, said Kiba, smiling evilly and stretching his hand to bring his prey to his mistress. No, get away! The pink-haired girl screamed, scared. And oh, if I avoid it, said a voice that terrified Kiba and pleased Kai'ed. In that a black and spectral hand took Kiba by the forearm, and the blonde saw Darkrai as if nothing had happened, but his eyes were already reddish. A sign of anger. Time to finish things, Dark Gap, shouted Darkrai, throwing the sphere at Kiba. Damn it! The blonde shouted as Darkrai's attack hit him, putting him to sleep instantly. Darkrai sees Kai'ed. Are you okay? Issei said, somewhat worried. Yes, but how is it possible that you are alive after that attack from Kiba, said Kai'ed, surprised. I'll tell you when the time comes, but for now you'll sleep. What follows will be something strong for you, okay? Said Darkrai, to which Yui agreed. Issei proceeded to put her to sleep with hypnosis. Now he would finish his business with Kiba. Nightmare, said Darkrai, so that his soul entered Kiba's body. Kiba's nightmare. Audio from the video plays. The Sacred Sword Project was being witnessed, and Kiba and his former friends were locked in the cells. Everyone looked scared, especially Kiba, who was reliving that traumatic event from his past. Ha 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 ha, Master, everything is ready, shouted a psychopathic priest that Kiba recognized. Don't rush, Freed. Remember that after the experiment goes perfectly with our chosen warrior, you will have your replica of Excalibur, since both possess the control of the light element, said Balba Galilei, seeing the children next to Kiba in the light extraction cells. Please let Kiba-kun live! A girl screamed. Please let him live, said another child, crying. Kiba cried out what the younger members said to him. Please! Everyone in the cells shouted. All right. Free the blonde boy from over there. Balba shouted, and in that the psychopathic exorcist along with 2 other followers of Balba, freeze Kiba and hold them now. Children, are you ready? At that, the children smile evilly at what the genocidal archbishop said. Audio from the video plays. Yes, Gaili-sama. The children shouted in unison. Looking at Kiba with psychopathic eyes, he paled at what he saw, and then the machine where they extracted the light element did its thing, killing the children who still remained with their psychopathic smiles. Obtaining said element stored in a pendant. Now is the time to test it on our best warrior. Enter HYOUDO Issei! Shouted Balba while Kiba looked in horror at the brown-haired man who came out of the shadows. He was wearing an exorcist suit that looked at him with contempt, and carried a sack that what it had inside smelled of putrefaction and blood. I have fulfilled my last mission, Balba Galilei-sama, said Issei, kneeling down. I want to see them, I want to see them. Freed shouted anxiously, and then Issei started to empty the sack and revealed something that made Kiba vomit in horror, while Freed howled and screamed in joy. No, RIAS Boucho! Akino-san! Asia! Kaneko! Zenobia! Irina! Rosweiss! Ravel! Gasper! Kiba screamed in horror as he saw the severed heads of his entourage with their gestures of pain and guilt. Issei. How could you do it? RIAS loved you. Everyone loved you. Puggg, stop pretending hypocrisy. Pretty boy, said a voice that reflected a very familiar cadre who had hit Kiba in the abdomen. Master Kokabile. Freed Balba, the followers, and Issei shouted. Kiba was horrified to see that Issei allied himself with Kokabile. Do you still not remember how you sent him to the distortion world? Said Kokabile, looking sadistically at Kiba. Stop saying stupid things. This will be nothing compared to what will happen to your stupid mistress and your companion's entourage, said Kokabile, giving an Excalibur to Issei. When they found out what you did to young Issei, your friends decided to give their souls so that the Sekiryutai could take revenge on you, said Kokabile. Young Issei gave you his true friendship, and you respond by spitting on him. I don't know who the monster is here anymore. No, this is a lie. Kiba screamed hysterically, unable to move. Of course not, said Issei, because you think they begged you to be released from your cell. Pretty boy, said Issei. At that, Kokabile, Freed, and Balba become dark masses and join Issei. He transforms into Darkrai while holding the Excalibur. Why did they chose you as a guinea pig to test Excalibur? Nuh! Kiba shouted when he saw Darkrai with Excalibur ready to be cut in half. Outside Kiba's body, Darkrai's spirit left Kiba's body, but he carried the blonde's soul in his hands. Issei-kun, forgive me! The blonde shouted while Darkrai devoured his soul. In that, Darkrai took Kiba's corpse and pierced his chest with a branch, leaving him hanging. He carried Yui in princess form and proceeded to retreat into the shadows of the trees. RIAS was impatient because Kiba didn't arrive until she received a call through the magic circle. RIAS, this is horrible! Shouted an upset and tearful Akino. What's happening? RIAS shouts. HYOUDO-kun, they have murdered him! Akino screamed, crying. RIAS couldn't believe HYOUDO was dead now. His entourage was slowly dying at the hands of Darkrai. No, it's not possible! RIAS said nervously and starting to tremble. What the hell are you, Darkrai? RIAS said, and then she recalls a memory when Issei was thrown into the distortion world. I'll kill you all! Issei shouted when Irina and Zenobia threw him into said portal. Issei, no, it's not possible! Said RIAS. Issei, it's impossible that you have come out of the distortion world. You're someone weak! Shouted the redhead, nervously smiling in a sickly way, but immediately tears sprang from her eyes, and then she began to cry silently for the death of her second murdered knight, and took the fetal position in the middle of the occult club. World distortion. Issei. Darkrai was wandering in that place when, Hey Issei, said a motherly and stern voice, to which Darkrai saw an intimidating-looking dragon. Master Jurantina, said Darkrai, and in that Jurantina transforms her colossal dragon body into a woman's body. You know it's very cruel of you to promise something you can't fulfill to the Kates girl, said Jurantina. Darkrai just remained silent. You know that despite absorbing the souls of the beings that condemned you, you would only have a lifespan of one new moon cycle, and when that cycle ends you will die. Teacher, I thank you for saving me when those wretches sent me to the distortion world, but I would prefer oblivion to this existence, said Issei. I prefer to die being HYOUDO. Issei, seeing my friends, my family, and Isekai'ed one last time, than to live as Darkrai, a ruthless murderer, said Issei seriously before his teacher. Chapter Psychological Taxidermy. The night in Kuoh Forest was filled with the sirens of police cars and ambulances, and all because they found Kiba Yuto's body impaled on one of the branches in the ribcage area. The news spread and reactions at the academy were immediate. The girls cried for the death of their beloved prince. The boys secretly celebrated since there was less competition to win women. But the most affected were the girls of the occult club, especially RIAS upon losing one of her first servants. Kiba, Kiba, Kiba! RIAS screamed in pain as she saw her faithful servant remember the way they found him dead. RIAS said, Azazel entering the club, stop behaving like a stupid girl, Kiba, and the others wouldn't like to see you like this right now. You're right, Azazel, said RIAS, slowly recovering. Tell me, RIAS, with all sincerity, is there something you should share? Said Azazel, I don't think that creature attacks the members and allies of your entourage for pleasure. It must have a reason why it attacks them. RIAS suddenly remembers Issei, who tortured him that day and promised to kill them all. No, I have no idea, Azazel, said RIAS very nervously as the rest of RIAS's entourage got nervous, something that Azazel noticed. Very well, if you remember anything, don't hesitate to tell me, said the cadre, leaving the club, to the sigh of the club. It was close, said Akino. RIAS, will you still continue with the plan to recruit Kate-san? That's right, if not, I'll have to kill her, said RIAS seriously. She knows our dark secret, and we mustn't allow her to spread what we did to Issei. Kaneko, it's your turn to bring Isekai'ed. If she doesn't obey, you'll kill her, said RIAS with a serious look. If Darkrai appears, don't hesitate to attack him. Hi, Bucho Desia, Kaneko. You really don't learn, said Ddraig. It was the same thing that happened to your knight, and he ended up dead. Shut up, you freak lizard, said RIAS. You'll see that in the end I'll be victorious. You're boring, better shut up and send your servant to certain death, said Ddraig. Kaneko, follow the plan as I told you. You will not return until you bring Kate alive or with her head cut off before me, RIAS said furiously. Is that clear? Hi, Bucho, said the Nikomata, retreating in a magic circle. But what the redhead and her club didn't know is that Azazel heard everything. So RIAS and her entourage have something to do with Issei's disappearance, and it seems that it has something to do with that creature called Darkrai and the girl Isekai'ed-san, said Azazel seriously and annoyed. I must investigate, said Azazel, leaving from there. Time skip. Yui and her group had their last class in the biology lab by dissecting a toad that was on the top floor. Yui-chan, hurry up, we have kendo practice now, said Murayama, smiling at her friend. Friend, I think I won't be able to go to practice. I feel a little unwell, said Yui, holding her stomach. I think I'll rest for today. Murayama looked at her friend with pity. Well, get better, friend. See you tomorrow, said Murayama, saying goodbye to the pink-haired girl. The teacher also left, leaving Kate alone. Yui, I feel the presence of careful on your left, said Darkrai, but the last one shouted. Alarmed, and in that one of the walls of the classroom exploded. Yui dodged it by very little, and from the wall came out the white Nikomata of RIAS, Gremory, looking with her stoicism at the pink-haired girl. Isekai'ed, if you don't come with me now, I'll kill you right now, Kaneko said expressionlessly as she took a battle stance. Now the cat is coming for me, said Kate, looking with disdain. If everyone in Kuoh knew that their greatest idols are truly the most despicable in existence, although I am thankful that of you died all for betraying the person who did so much for you. Shut up, Kaneko shouted. He made you and your sister Kuroka make peace. He made you accept your yokai side. Without him you wouldn't be what you are now, Kaneko, or better, said Chiron Tuja, said Kate, leaving the Nikomata in shock. Nobody knew about the Nikomata's secrets other than the members of the occult club and the supernatural beings related to her. But the fact that Kate Yui knew about it was like throwing cold water at her. No, I don't care what Senpai has done to me and call me ungrateful. But you don't know what it's like to live under his shadow, that your achievements are not recognized by everyone. He was given fame, but he never wanted to take advantage of it. That made us angry, and he proved not to be that strong when we assaulted him and took Ddraig from him, said the Nikomata with great resentment. Issei Senpai proved to be a fraud. RIAS Gremory-sama will prove to be the most suitable to be the Sekiryutai. Kate couldn't feel more disgusted by the albino loli and her club. He didn't want to attack you because he still had love for you, but you took advantage of that, and that shows that you are not only traitors like cowards. Yui shouted angrily, shedding tears. Nobody calls me a coward, much less a disgusting human, said Kaneko, throwing herself at Yui, surrounding her fists with senjutsu, ready to hit the pink-haired girl. But first defeat me before you touch her, Nikomata shouted Darkrai coming out of Yui's shadow, holding Kaniko's arms. Darkrai said Yui and Kaniko, the first with relief and the second with a murderous desire against the victimizer of her comrades. I won't let you touch Yui-chan, shouted Darkrai, to which the Plarosa blushed. In that, Darkrai began to gather dark energy in his hands and began to subdue Kaniko until he left her on the floor and proceeded to give several shadow claw attacks against the Nikomata, leaving her injured and sending her to the blackboard to crash. You're right, Yui-chan, cowards once, cowards forever, said Darkrai, while Kaniko sat up with her clothes totally ruined, leaving her bra and panties with kitten prints visible. Damn, hand me over to Yui-Kate's Darkrai, or I'll take the consequences, Kaniko said, putting herself on guard. Yui, upon hearing Kaniko's threat, only feels a smooth hand and sees that Darkrai brought her closer to him, hugging her. Dead first before handing you over to another Gremory, or to Yui-chan, said Darkrai, and at that Yui blushes red and hugs her protector. Kaniko gets furious at what the sinister being said. Die! Kaniko screamed, surrounding her arms with Senjutsu again. But, Black Gap! Shouted Darkrai, launching said attack, hitting Kaniko, leaving her asleep instantly. After that, Darkrai saw Kates, to which she nodded as a sign that she understood what he was going to do. He used hypnosis on her to put her to sleep and prevent her from seeing what he was going to do to the Nikomata. Nightmare, Issei said, and proceeded to recreate the scenario to absorb his soul. But he was seen from very close by Azazel, since he saw everything through a device that recorded everything live. Kaniko's nightmare. A scene was seen in the hall of a castle in the underworld, where Kuroka Tuju is about to be reincarnated as a bishop. I, Makoto Amustias, reincarnate you as my bishop Kuroka Tuju, and live from me, shouted the high-class demon as he inserted the two bishops into the black Nikomata, making her part of the Amustias clan. Now I will give a sweet welcome to your cute little sister, said the demon, licking his lips, looking at Kaniko with lust. She looked at the demon with fear, but saw how Kuroka began to release Yukai energy, and immediately, with a roar of an angry cat, trash, Kuroka jumped on the demon and began to kill her master by biting his neck and tearing off his flesh, while those feline eyes enjoyed the barbarity, and her face was stained with blood, while a maniacal and sadistic smile was drawn on the black Nikomata when she saw her terrified little sister. Damn Nikomata no Ardga! Screamed the dying demon, while Kuroka bloodthirstily cut him up in front of the terrified Kaniko. And in that, the Nikomata, still possessed by the thirst for blood, violence and death, having in her mouth the recently severed arm of her former master, wanted to kill her poor little sister. Kuro ka Nisama, said Kaniko with total panic, paralyzed with fear. But in that, guards! They killed the heir of Amustias! Shouted a demon, and then Kuroka heard that and left the castle, destroying a window. The black Nikomata escaped capture her, and catch the white one. In that, many demons subdue the white-haired woman, who was static and paralyzed with fear upon remembering that scene of the massacre that Kuroka orchestrated against her former master. In that, Kaniko saw how she was escorted on a long road until she reached the Council of Demons and was chained with anti-magic shackles, and was at the mercy of the sight of the demonic council and the MAOUs. This honorable court will deal with the intentional homicide against the heir of Amustias, where the Nikomata Kuroka Tuju killed the only heir of the clan, so the Nikomata Kaniko Tuju is captured to avoid a possible recurrence. Just a moment! Shouted none other than Sirzechs Gremory. In that, Kaniko sees a light of hope. I, Sirzechs Lucifer, current MAOU, formally accused Kaniko Tuju of being participated in the disappearance of Issei HYOUDO along with his lover RIAS Gremory, her allies and her ENTOUR. Kaniko's glimmer of hope was shattered when she was accused of a crime she knew she had committed. Just then, a light illuminated a gallows where they were already hanging over a barrel, the rope around their necks. RIAS Bouchu! Guys! Kaniko screamed, horrified, seeing her master, Irina and Zenobia, with a lost look. Asia, Gasper and Aquino cried, asking for forgiveness. Kiba, Ravel and Rosweiss with a look of indignation, but before that, the executioner, wearing a black tunic that covered his entire body, accompanied by a hood with the holes that gave rise to the eyes, appeared. Now who will carry out the sentence will be the same victim who returned from the distortion world, the executioner on duty, Issei HYOUDO. Seraphal shouted, and at that said executioner took off his hood, revealing the brown-haired man who looked with sick hatred at his former companions and his entourage. Now let justice be done. And one by one Issei knocked down the barrels, causing death by suffocation to the members of RIAS Gremory's clan, all of them began to convulse due to the trauma to their necks and lack of oxygen, grimacing in pain and horror, before Issei's satisfied face and Kaniko's horror until the 9 condemned to the orca finished moving and now only showed their faces with their eyes blank, backward and dull. Kaniko looked in terror at her senpai who killed her for the crime they committed. "Please Issei-senpai," said the white Nikomata crying while the brown-haired boy approached slowly. "Forgive me, forgive me, forgive Kaniko." But then a magic circle appears next to Issei, revealing to Kuroka that he saw his little sister with immense hatred and disappointment. "Do you think that by asking Issei Naya will forgive you easily?" said the Nikomata angrily. "I had let you be happy with him. But you had to ruin that because of your damn jealousy, and now thanks to that I'll have free reign to be with him forever, right Darkrai?" At that point the brown-haired boy begins to transform into Darkrai, who hugs Kuroka affectionately, to Kaniko's terror. "You have a place by my side, kitten," said Darkrai, to which Kuroka made a flirtatious face. "When I kill your traitor sister," she said while a huge claw grew in her hand. "Dai Kaniko toujours." Out of Kaniko's body, Darkrai's soul proceeded to pull Kaniko's soul out of her original body. "Senpai thigh!" screamed the Nikomata, terrified at the cruel fate imposed by the sinister being and her soul being consumed by it, leaving Kaniko's corpse on the ground. And just as he was taking the next step, Darkrai discovered that he had been seen and located Azazel's machine, and proceeded to destroy it with an ice beam. Far from there, Azazel, who witnessed the horrible death of Kaniko and consequently of Gasper, Irina, Zenobia and Kiba, proceeded to go quickly to the biology classroom but could not enter since there was a barrier strong enough to prevent the cadre from entering. "Curse!" shouted the cadre as he tried to break the barrier to confront the dark being. But then, Darkrai felt the cadre's aura. "I'll leave you a little gift, a beautiful, stuffed cat," Issei said, and with his psychic powers he arranges Kaniko in the form of a stuffed lion, and uses his dark powers a bit to accelerate Kaniko's rigor mortis to become rigid. Once his work is finished, he carries Isekai'ed and deactivates the barrier, and in that Azazel enters ready to attack Darkrai, but he disappears with Isekai'ed in the shadows. The group heads to where Kaniko's corpse was, but upon seeing her like a stuffed animal, they are only horrified, kneel down, and rub their temples. "Damn," said the scared cadre, lamenting the way Kaniko toujours died and ended, in that he creates a magic circle to communicate with RIAS. "RIAS Kaniko toujours has died," said Azazel, and through the circle only a pitiful "no, no, no, no" could be heard from the redhead in pain that now her beloved Nikomata has died. Chapter: The Price of Disobedience. RIAS hadn't stopped crying over Kaniko's death. 2 days had passed since she was found stuffed up, in the biology lab, to be exact. The entire club was filled with a heavy, resigned, but above all, angry and sad atmosphere. But that day, a magic circle arrived at the occult club and revealed Kaniko's older sister, Kuroka Hellcat. She had a clearly furious face. "Kuroka," RIAS said, but the black Nikomata approached the redhead with a furious step and PAF. Kuroka had given the redhead a strong slap. "Damn, I entrusted you with Chiron's life and now it's your fault because of you, damn it." Sniff, Kuroka screamed hysterically while tears were falling from her beautiful eyes, and because she was so furious she tried to throw herself at the Gremory, but she was stopped by Rosweiss and Asia while Ravel and Aquino lifted RIAS, who was still shocked. "Kuroka-san, please calm down," Asia pleaded with the Nikomata, but upon hearing, "calm down," she only got angrier. She elbowed Rosweiss and grabbed Asia by the neck, who looked at her with feline eyes full of hatred, fury and pain in the Nikomata. "They are the last ones to tell me to calm down when Sniff, my sister, is now dead because of that." Sniff, she said, pointing at the redhead, and Issei Sniff, Issei Naya is still missing. Kuroka shouted in pain as she mentioned the 2 people she cares so much for in her life. "So don't ever tell me again, Tio, calm down, you damn useless nun," Kuroka shouted as she threw Asia against the desk. "Enough," Kuroka shouted, a voice that reflected Azazel with a serious face. "I want you to leave, please. I need to speak with the club members alone," he said with an imminent hint of danger in his voice to scare the Nikomata so that she would quickly leave the club in a magic circle. "Good, it is time for us to take precautionary measures from this moment on. No one from the occult club, but strictly no one, will have contact with Isekai'ed." That left all the surviving Gremory frozen. But Azazel, RIAS reproached, but the cadre gave her an intimidating look. "Haven't you understood?" Azazel shouted at RIAS. "You sent 2 of your servants to try to recruit Isekai'ed, and they both ended up dead, not to mention that you also sent Irina to recruit her, and she ended up dead," Azazel said, looking with obvious anger. "Although it's a miracle that Michael hasn't claimed anything from you for the death of his ace. If not, the alliance would have gone to waste because of you." RIAS couldn't process Azazel's scolding any longer, and immediately left the club crying under the embarrassed look of the cadre, leaving the club survivors with him. "Fine, if RIAS doesn't want to understand. I emphasize my order as club advisor. It is strictly prohibited to approach HYOUDO," said Azazel with an intimidating tone. "What I want to avoid is more lives being lost. If RIAS doesn't want to do it for any reason, I will do it. Is that clear?" said Azazel, to which everyone in the club nodded. "Well, you should go to classes. I'll see you in the afternoon," said the cadre, retreating in a magic circle of the club. The survivors left the building, but they left alone an albino who remained sitting and had her mind clouded by anger and revenge because of a pink-haired girl who was guarded by the murderer of her friends. "Isekai'ed, I swear on my honor as an Asgardian that I will kill you for my comrades," Rosweiss said while clenching her fists that were beginning to shed drops of blood. Time skip. Yui was having her normal school day talking with her friends. She looked somewhat happy since she was saved by Darkrai from Kaneko Tuju's attack. She felt very safe, but above all happy to know that her sentry and secret love was always with her. As soon as she had free time, they would start talking mentally, and when they were on recess and the pink-haired girl was alone, she would put on a hands-free kit to talk to Issei. But all this was seen by Azazel, who was watching the pink-haired girl. The cadre was trying to locate the aura of the murderer of the members of the occult club, but was unsuccessful. Even using their latest technology machines, they could not locate Darkrai. Until the time came for the last subject of the day, and it was civic education, and the person teaching that subject was "Good afternoon, Professor Rosweiss," said Class A, bowing as the albino entered with her serious character. "Good afternoon. Take a seat," said Ross, putting his notes on the desk, but his gaze fixed for a moment on Yui, glaring at her. But the pink-haired girl also looked with sick hatred at the albino, since in front of her she had one of the causes that Issei had that sinister and spectral form. But she immediately smiled defiantly at Rosweiss, since they themselves only provoked the worst of the assassins to be unleashed against her. The albino, seeing her smile like that, got angry and decided to move forward with her plan. "Guys, there will be no classes today," said Rosweiss with her gaze covered by her hair. "I must speak with one of your classmates in private about her academic performance in my class, so Miss Isekai'ed, please, I must speak with you. The others go home. I will see you tomorrow," said Rosweiss with a very forced smile, to which the albino teacher's announcement seemed strange to them. So they decided to obey, and the students left, leaving only Yui and Rosweiss alone in the classroom. The pink-haired girl looked at the albino without fear. "Be careful," Darkrai said mentally. "I feel a lot of hostility in Rosweiss." "Isekai'ed," she said with her gaze covered by her hair, and in that she created a pocket dimension. "I will kill you," she shouted while a psychotic and furious look formed, while her Valkyrie armor appeared surrounding her body, and with her spear held in her right hand she went out to attack the pink-haired girl. "Damn it!" Rosweiss screamed, panting as she continued to stare at the pink-haired girl with intense hatred. "Wow, so the old maid is tired," said Isekai'ed, mocking the albino. "Your attacks are so ineffective that now I see why Odin-sama has abandoned you. You dishonor Asgard," said Yui, smiling, leaving Rosweiss frozen. How do you know about the existence of Odin and Asgard?" Rosweiss said, unable to believe it. "I know a lot of things about the supernatural, Ross, and no Rosweiss, the eternally single Valkyrie," Yui said mockingly, something that made the albino proud, making her furious. "It's a shame that the man who truly loved you, you betrayed him because of your stupid jealousy. I mean HYOUDO Issei." At the mention of that name, that was what really exhausted the albino's patience. HYOUDO Issei, he was just a damn pervert and a thief of glory. Odin-sama never congratulated me for everything I did for him, and instead he congratulated that damn pervert, and I couldn't believe it. He had given him lands and even people who had sworn loyalty to that bastard, but RIAS Gremory and I weren't going to sit idly by. Now we send him to a dimension where it is impossible to get out of there without the magic of whoever opens that dimensional grid, and guess who did that? It was me," Rosweiss said, smiling at Yui with pride at her crime. "You're just a poor frustrated woman," said Yui, looking with crystalline eyes full of anger. "A poor woman who doesn't respect herself, and you're just a vile puppet of RIAS Gremory. From an honorable bodyguard of the main god of Asgard to a pathetic criminal who justifies her crime for something personal. but in something you're wrong, said Yui, smiling defiantly at Ross. Issei is here with us. I know you're talking stupid things, Rossweiss said, going crazy. Issei. Without Ddraig you can't get out of there. He's someone weak, someone who should never exist. Issei is not here. Rossweiss shouted when she felt a very powerful pressure that practically darkened the pocket dimension. Oh no, Ross-chan, I was always here, said a voice that both recognized. Yui smiled, but Rossweiss was horrified, and then Yuikete's shadow began to spread, and from there came a silhouette in the shape of Issei. Hello, Ross-chan. Ross looked with terror at the silhouette of the one who was once his only love. No. She screamed in pure terror when she saw Issei in front of her. It's impossible. You must be in that dimension. Oh no, Ross-chan, said Issei when he suddenly began to transform until he took his current form of Darkrai. I always come out ahead. Die! Rossweiss shouted, launching a magical attack against Darkrai, but he just raised his arm. Reflect, said Darkrai, protecting Yui, and Rossweiss's magic attack was repelled towards its creator. Oh no! Rossweiss screamed, seeing how the attack came towards her and impacted. Boom! The magical attack hit the albino, leaving her badly injured, all her armor in pieces, her clothes also in tatters, showing only her bra and violet panties, but her body bruised and with traces of blood from her face to her legs. Darkrai approaches Rossweiss. Gondel-sen, she must be ashamed of you, said Darkrai. Shut up, Rossweiss shouted, but Darkrai would silence her. Black Gap, Darkrai shouted as he threw the sphere at Rossweiss. Yui approached her protector and asked him to put her to sleep so she wouldn't have to see Issei kill his next victim, which he agreed to. Nightmare, said Darkrai, and his soul proceeded to enter Rossweiss's body. Rossweiss nightmare. Ross was walking towards his grandmother's house but noticed something strange. The street had been decorated with wedding details. How strange. Whoever is getting married must be someone important for someone to get married, Ross said as he continued walking until he reached his grandmother's house. But what the hell happened to Mormer's house? Rossweiss said, scandalized, seeing that her grandmother's house was decorated with wedding details, and entered her house. Mormer? Rossweiss shouted when. Oh, you're here, Roos-chan, said a very young voice when Rossweiss saw an albino lady wearing a wedding dress. Too beautiful to be believable. It's time for you to give me to my husband at the altar, said the albino to Rossweiss. Mormer. Rossweiss shouted incredulously upon seeing her grandmother rejuvenated. She was the most beautiful woman she had ever seen. Head, did I impress you, my granddaughter? Said Gondel, smiling warmly at his granddaughter. I must thank my fiancé who brought me back to the flower of my youth, and despite my signs of aging, he loved me anyway, and as a wedding gift I am back to my youth, said Gondel very happily. At that moment, a carriage arrived. The time has come for me to get married. Come with me, Rossweiss, said Gondel happily, which his granddaughter obeyed. They followed the path to the place where Gondel would marry her partner, whom she would call grandfather for the first time. All the Asgardians were already waiting for the marriage ceremony between Gondel and her fiancé, and when Ross arrived at the ceremony he was horrified to see who Gondel's fiancé was. What he was waiting for with Odin to unite them in holy matrimony. Hello, my dear, said a brown-haired man who dressed elegantly, much loved by Asgard but hated by Rossweiss. Issei, Gondel said, smiling and blushing. Rossweiss was horrified. No, Mormer, Rossweiss said, terrified and furious, but a look from Gondel silenced her. Don't even think about interrupting my wedding, Rossweiss, or the consequences will be very serious for you, said Gondel with a sharp look that stopped Rossweiss dead in her tracks. She, resigned and furious, went to sit with the other Asgardians while she watched her grandmother marry her ex-fiancé. The marriage ceremony continued with a furious and pained Rossweiss. She looked at Issei with hatred, but the brunette was focused on the eyes of his girlfriend. And you, Issei HYOUDO, do you accept Gondel as your legitimate wife? Said Odin. I accept, said Issei. And you, Gondel, do you accept Issei HYOUDO as your legitimate husband? Said Odin. I accept, Gondel said to Rossweiss, pain. And now if someone does not agree with this marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. Said Odin. Rossweiss wanted to complain, but she still saw how Gondel looked at her with ferocity, which left her speechless and powerless. Now I declare you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. The ceremony ended while Issei kissed Gondel, to the applause of all the Asgardians present and to the horror of Rossweiss, who could not bear this any longer. Mormer? Rossweiss shouted furiously at the surprised Asgardians. This is a damn joke. It's a damn joke that you're marrying my fiancé. Joke? said Gondel with a dark look. It was a joke that you sent him to the distortion world because of your damn jealousy and orders from RIAS Gremory? Said Gondel, and Rosweiss felt terror knowing that her grandmother knew about the crime she committed. Do you consider it a joke that I love this boy and you, having him in your hands, send him to such an inhospitable and dark place because of your envy? Said Gondel while emanating Asgardian fire energy intimidating Rosweiss. No, it's not true. Rosweiss tried to defend herself, but Odin took action. Guards, arrest Rosweiss, said the father of all, and in that many Valkyries subdued Rosweiss. You thought we were going to leave your crime against Issei unpunished, said Gondel, glaring at his granddaughter. Thank your stupid mistress that you will now wander around Helheim for eternity. Rosweiss turned pale with terror, and then Issei proceeded to transform into Darkrai. But not only him. The Valkyries who had the albinos subdued also transformed into Darkrai, each wielding an Asgardian sword. My dear, do you think I should kill him? Said Darkrai looking at Gondel. Yes, she said smiling. Rosweiss was devastated. She has only stained the honor of my family. Darkrai stares at the albino. Goodbye, Rosweiss, said Darkrai raising his hand, and then his clones proceed to kill the albino. Out of Rosweiss's body. Darkrai leaves the albino's body but with her soul newly collected. Forgive me! Rosweiss's soul screamed as she was consumed by Issei, killing another of his victims. Leaving the corpse of the former Valkyrie on the ground, he proceeds to take the sleeping Yui and enter the shadows, leaving said corpse loose. In the occult club, everyone is gathered, but where is Rosweiss? Azazel, said RIAS. It didn't occur to you to send her to recruit Kate-san, did it? No, Azazel, I haven't sent anyone, RIAS said, but Kaiwia! A heart-rending scream was heard in the school, to which the occult club came out to the scream, and then, it's in the A room, said a soccer player, at which Azazel became alarmed. Kate-san's classroom, said the cadre seriously. Let's go quickly, he shouted, and the occult club ran quickly, and in that moment many students were gathered outside the classroom, and in that moment the club saw Rosweiss. RIAS screamed as she saw her rook lying on the ground with a pained expression, while the doctor and nurse only put a sheet covering her completely. Relatives of Professor Rosweiss? Said the academy doctor to Azazel and the occult club. Friendship, said Azazel with a face that looked like he was expecting the worst. I'm sorry, but Professor Rosweiss has died, said the doctor, confirming the death of the former Valkyrie to the horror of the occult club. Nuh! RIAS screamed, running and kneeling before Rosweiss's corpse, and oh! Ros! Nuh! RIAS screamed in pain while her queen, also crying, tried to calm RIAS down. Asia and Ravel cried at another loss. Kuoh is no longer a safe place for RIAS and her entourage. Azazel said in his mind, I must talk to Sirzechs about this, said the cadre, leaving RIAS alone with her pain. Chapter Horror has an origin. Rosweiss's death caused Azazel to gather the leaders of the Alliance's factions in an extraordinary and urgent manner in the underworld. The reason we are gathered is to discuss the case of Darkrai, the assassin who killed your sister Sirzechs' entourage and allies, Azazel said quite seriously. What do you know about that, Azazel? Said the red-haired MAOU, adopting the same seriousness of his fallen counterpart. Your sister has tried to recruit this girl, Isekai'ed, said Azazel while with a device he made a hologram of Isekai'ed appear. He wants to make her his pawn, but when RIAS sent her servants to recruit her, they are killed by Darkrai. This being is like a sentinel for Isekai'ed. He prevents RIAS from recruiting her. But Ross's murder, RIAS sent her to recruit Isekai'ed-san? Odin said very furiously. At that the atmosphere became tense. No, Ross acted on his own, said Azazel. RIAS didn't lie when she told me that Rosweiss acted without her consent. Her motive was to kill Isekai'ed. This outraged Odin, as he considered Rosweiss to be very immature and quite dishonorable to attack a human on a whim. What I mean is that RIAS Gremory, Asia Argento, Akino Himejima and Ravel Phoenix are in latent danger, and above all they provoke Darkrai's fury for something they themselves unleashed, said Azazel, with that statement leaving some leaders surprised by it, and others annoyed with a certain Sirzechs. What are you trying to say, Azazel? Sirzechs said angrily. I mean that RIAS and her entourage did something that provoked the imminent wrath of Darkrai, and one by one, they are paying with their lives, said Azazel without losing his calm and seriousness. I have asked her several times, but she denies it, although the nerves with which she justifies it to me. Obviously I know that they are lying to me, so I suggest you hide RIAS, Akino, Asia and Ravel in the underworld. Kuoh is no longer a safe place for the four of them. Sirzechs sighed heavily. Well, tomorrow RIAS Gremory and the survivors of the occult club will return to the underworld, Revel Phoenix will return to her clan's castle and RIAS along with her queen and bishop will be in our territory under SSS rank protection. Watched hours a day, said Sirzechs, frustrated. If only Issei were here, we wouldn't be worrying about this right now. At what Sirzechs said, Seraphal, Gabriel, Penemu and Yasaka couldn't help but feel sad for the beloved chestnut who had stolen their hearts. I won't touch the suspicion of Issei's disappearance at the hands of RIAS, not yet, thought Azazel. I must confirm my suspicions before making a verdict, so I must talk to Isekai'ed and in short talk to Darkrai. The next day, at RIAS's residence in Kuoh, the redhead was notified that she would be returning to the underworld by order of her brother and for personal safety reasons, along with what remains of her entourage and her ally Revel Phoenix. It didn't take them more than minutes to pack their bags and leave the residence she had in Kuoh. Sad and frustrated, the Gremory and the Phoenix said goodbye to their residence for the last time, not counting that they found Zenobia dead there. The security protocol orchestrated by Sirzechs was that both RIAS, her entourage and Revel would be protected by guards around their respective castles within a km radius so that any intruder would be easily detected and quickly eliminated. The time they would remain in the underworld would be indefinite until they found Darkrai and eliminated his existence from this world. Elsewhere, it was the weekend and Isekai'ed went out to enjoy some time, alone, at a soda fountain. Darkrai said, "You eating a chocolate ice cream? Tell me what caused you to become a pervert." "I mean, if I may ask," said Kai'd while savoring her ice cream. "It's something that I don't want to reveal for the moment," Issei said in the pink-haired girl's mind with a rather sad tone. "I feel that it was one of the reasons why I was easy prey for RIAS Gremory to be recruited by her and consequently, my current situation." "Sorry," Isekai'ed said very quietly, "I made you remember something very dark from your past." "Don't worry," said Darkrai, "but then the Dark Sentry feels a strong presence. You be careful, someone is coming towards you behind your back." At that moment, Yui saw a man approaching and soon Issei and the pink-haired girl recognized him. "Azazel sensei," they both said, surprised to see the black-haired man with a blonde streak. "Good morning," Isekai'ed-san said the cadre wearing a black trench coat and a hat of the same color. While sitting in front of his school student, "I would like to talk to you about some things that have happened lately. But to start, Isekai'ed, do you believe in the supernatural?" The pink-haired girl took on a serious expression at her teacher's question. "Yes, I believe it, Cadre Azazel," said the pink-haired girl, surprising Azazel, "but don't worry. I haven't spread anything about you. I do it in memory of my only love to whom I have revealed all the information. I keep all that information secret." "And who revealed it to you?" Azazel said, intrigued. "HYOUDO Isci, the security," said Yui, shocking Azazel, "but I also wish to speak very seriously with you. Alone, because you are the only one of the leaders that I can see easily, and it is regarding the disappearance of Issei." Azazel didn't hesitate any longer, and immediately took out a device from his trench coat. Azazel gave him a pill to swallow as quickly as possible to be immune to the device's effect, and suddenly the cadre activated it, and began to spread a somewhat unbearable fragrance that caused the people around them to start leaving there. The soda fountain began to close until leaving the pink-haired girl and the cadre alone. "If you ask what I did, it was to spread a scent that is quite repulsive to humans, but not to supernaturals, and that was the reason why I asked you to swallow that pill, so that this device would have no effect on you, useful when you don't want anyone in your house after in the morning, right?" "Oh yes, very useful," Yui and Darkrai said in their minds. After making sure there was no one around him, Azazel activated a pocket dimension to now be alone and talk about quite serious topics. "Well, first of all, let me tell you, you have something to do with a creature called Darkrai?" Azazel said seriously, something that did not intimidate Yui, who also remained firm. "That's right," said Yui without stopping looking at her father. "Let me tell you, Yui, that Darkrai is the murderer of the entourage of one of the most important daughters of the underworld, RIAS Gremory," said Azazel. "I know," Yui said without being intimidated, something that surprised the cadre, "and in fact I can say that they more than deserve it." Azazel sensei, RIAS Gremory, and that flock of damned crows, no offense sensei, betrayed Issei, and now one by one they paid for it, and they will pay with their death. "And how do I know you're not lying to me, Isekai'ed?" Azazel said seriously. The pink-haired girl just sighed. "That's not for me to say," Yui said, closing her eyes and interlacing her fingers, putting them on her lips. "Whoever would tell her is behind her back." At that moment, the dimension begins to take on a sinister atmosphere. The sky turns reddish and Azazel feels a pressure and a cold on his back that practically freezes his blood. He looks sideways to his left, and sees a shadowy being he had never felt so afraid since he faced the Trihexa in the last great battle. "Hello, Azazel," said Darkrai, looking at him with intimidating eyes that Azazel could see certain death. "And don't worry, I have no intention of hurting you. I also came to talk to you." At that, Darkrai stands next to Yui as a sign of custody. The pink-haired woman hugs her sentry, something that left Azazel perplexed. "Tell me, Darkrai, why did you attack and kill RIAS Gremory's entourage? What caused your imminent anger towards them?" Azazel said, but with that question he made the atmosphere tense, and Darkrai began to emanate a dark aura due to the anger he felt. Yui began to calm him down by rubbing her hand on his head. "You should see the reason for yourself," said Darkrai, transporting himself in an instant towards Azazel, who didn't notice when he teleported, and doing the same as with Yui, he stuck his forehead against the cadres, teleporting him to his memories, revealing the same scene he showed to Yui. In that, Azazel sees how RIAS and her entourage betray Issei out of jealousy and envy. The cadre could not believe it. The redhead's pride and betrayal put at risk the alliance that was created with much work and effort. If Sirzechs, Michael, Yasaka, Odin, Zeus, and Shiva knew, an imminent war would break out that would possibly cause the extinction of some factions. Azazel could not feel more furious with RIAS and her entourage. Afterwards, Darkrai takes him out of his memories while Yui held the cadre, who was shocked at who the memory was. "Darkrai, are you Issei?" said Azazel, horrified, looking at the shadowy being, who nodded at what he said. "But how did you adopt that spectral figure?" "I'll reveal it to you," said Darkrai, "but Yui must also see it," he said while the pink-haired girl went to his side. "I'll reveal to you how I transformed into this. I'll reveal to you the distortion world," said Issei while with one of his claws he put it on his head, and a white sphere came out of it. And immediately, phew! He was revealing another of his memories to them. Azazel and Yui saw the world distorted. Azazel and Yui could see how chaos lived in this dimension, and disturbed them in some ways. "What is this place?" said Azazel. "I wouldn't feel this disturbed even if I were going to the last circle of hell," said the cadre while Yui stood behind him. Suddenly they saw Issei floating but suffering from the treacherous attacks he received from his now ex-colleagues. "Damn you!" said Issei while floating furiously in the middle of the distortion world. But in that, Gruer, a huge, shadowy-looking creature had passed by. "What is that?" said Azazel, alarmed. "I'm scared," said Isekai'ed. At that, the creature stands in front of Issei, who was looking at him carefully with piercing eyes. "Who are you, little human?" said the unknown creature to Issei with a serious feminine tone. "I feel so much hostility in your being." "My name is Yuggh," Issei said, but he complained of pain. The creature saw the wounds on his body. "Thank you. My name is HYOUDO, Issei." "How did you get here?" the creature asked the brunette. The brunette proceeded to tell him how he was betrayed and sent to this dimension. Azazel couldn't contain his anger toward RIAS and her entourage. For the first time, he felt that the deaths of her entourage were more than justified. "I see," said the dragon. "My name is Giratina, vigilant dragon and mistress of the distortion world, and I'm afraid that if you want to survive this dimension, your body will have to adapt to the chaos and darkness that it brings, or in a given case your body must transform," said Giratina, who continued looking at him. "Here the flow of time is non-existent. Years can pass in the normal world, but you don't age here. But in this dimension only I can live without problems due to my violent dark power. If you wish to live, redeem yourself, or better yet revenge, your body must undergo a metamorphosis. Are you ready?" said Giratina. Issei didn't think about it again, and with his mind focused on revenge he looked determinedly at his savior. "I accept," Issei shouted, and at that Giratina's eyes shine as a sign of using its power on Issei, and he proceeds to writhe. Issei screamed in pain as Azazel and Yui looked at him. They couldn't stand seeing Issei suffer like that. Yui began to cry again, but felt someone cover her eyes, and Azazel saw Darkrai preventing the pinkette from seeing that scene of her metamorphosis. Azazel watched as Issei's body proceeded to transform into a black mass and gradually took on the spectral figure he currently possesses, giving life to Darkrai. "Now you have a new appearance, and therefore you will develop new abilities," said Giratina. "But to return to your appearance again, you must devour the souls of your former comrades who hurt you before sending you to this world, at least of the souls. But now focus on becoming stronger," said Giratina. "Yes, teacher," said Darkrai, looking at his savior as she left. Immediately, Issei's memory gradually faded until Azazel and Yui returned to the pocket dimension they were in. The cadre now saw why he killed RIAS Gremory's entourage and allies. Issei, please don't kill any more of RIAS's allies, I beg you. I'll make them pardon you with the alliance, and I'll make RIAS punish her in the worst way, but please stop killing, Azazel said nervously. I'm afraid I'll disobey you, said Darkrai. I've already made a decision, and it will be to kill the survivors, and it's too late to stop me today. I will harvest another soul, and no one will be able to stop me, not even Great Red could, said Issei as he disappeared into the shadows with Yui. I don't want to hurt you, but RIAS Gremory and her surviving allies must pay, he said as Darkrai and Isekai'ed disappeared. Azazel deactivated the pocket dimension, very terrified. RIAS, you have caused the death of your entourage. What have you done? Said Azazel, very resigned and furious. Underworld, Phoenix Territory, PM. The castle was guarded by more than demon soldiers at Sirzechs' request to protect Revel Phoenix's life. But they saw that the sky also turned reddish, and the moon created in the underworld reflected a bloody color. Everyone felt a pressure that practically knocked them to the ground, and they felt that death was near. What's wrong with me? Said a demon soldier lying on the floor. This terrible power, said another soldier. Sleep in the darkness, said a voice that immediately rained of black brokens. At that point, several dark spheres fell from the sky and began to bombard the grounds of Phoenix Castle, causing the soldiers to fall asleep. Darkrai descended and began to use his bad dream ability, weakening them little by little. It's time to visit the Phoenix, said Darkrai, as he ghostly passed through the gate of the castle. Once inside, you could see that the lights were still on, and then several maids saw the creepy being. Help! They shouted, but Darkrai immediately put them to sleep with black gaps and weakened them little by little. At that moment, the Phoenix family emerges, led by the patriarchs and followed by Razor and his entourage, along with Revel. They see Darkrai, who is looking at them with eyes that reflect pure hatred. He's the killer of RIAS ENTOUR. He's coming for Revel. Razor shouted, attack. At that moment, RIAS's ex-fiancée's entourage attacks, but Darkrai repels them with Shadow Pulse, defeating them instantly. At that moment, Revel and Razor unleashed their wings of fire. Ready, Nizan? Said Razor. Always attack, said Revel, launching himself against Darkrai, but he already had his move ready. Nullification, said Darkrai while launching said attack at Ravel's two brothers, who fell to the floor since he blocked their fire magic. Excuse me for doing this to you, Razor. Revel, but her sister must pay. Damn you! Razor shouted, trying to make a fireball, but it was useless. I can't use my magic. The terrified blonde shouted. Black Gap, shouted Darkrai, putting the Phoenix brothers to sleep, and immediately seized the Phoenix patriarchs. They were very terrified that Darkrai easily defeated everyone in the castle. No, I won't let you get to my daughter, said Patriarch Raphael, emanating his fire-powered die. Shouted the patriarch, sending a huge ball of fire, but Darkrai repels it by swatting at said ball. Impossible, shouted the patriarch, and in that Darkrai throws a dark breach, putting the Phoenix leader to sleep. Dana Phoenix was completely terrified, being the only one who could defend her daughter against a ruthless threat. She only watched helplessly as Darkrai slowly approached her. He arrives and grabs her by the neck of her dress. She is terrified to see face to face with the murderer of the Gremory entourage. Forgive me, Dana, said Darkrai with a voice that the Phoenix matriarch recognized. You are RIAS, said the matriarch in amazement, but Darkrai put her to sleep using hypnosis on her and left her in a chair he found. Darkrai went to the place where his target was hiding. He arrived at Ravel's room, where he easily opened it and found his prey. The youngest of the Phoenix sees Darkrai, and she begins to tremble in fear. No, it's not possible, said the blonde, terrified when she saw Darkrai. That means they are asleep, said Darkrai, looking at Revel with hatred. They are not to blame for what you did to me. What I did to you? Revel said, terrified and confused. What did I do to you? Wow, don't you remember, my dear manager? Said Darkrai with a hint of hatred. No, it can't be, Issei? Revel screamed in panic upon seeing that the murderer of her comrades was once her platonic love. Please forgive me, she didn't finish because it made Issei even more furious. I can't stand you anymore, Black Gap! Shouted Darkrai and put Revel to sleep. Nightmare, he said while subjecting Revel to the same procedure. Revel's nightmare. Revel was waking up in his bed. It was a dream, said the blonde in her nightgown pajamas, getting up from her huge bed and suddenly sees a note on her living room table. Revel, I need you to help me regarding the new program that will replace a pay dragon, since I will be the new manager, and she personally asked me to be my assistant. He loves you, Mother. Ravel changed her clothes quickly and went quickly to the television station where they used to broadcast the Pay Dragon program and was curious what new program they were going to broadcast. Upon arriving at the television station, she saw that many children were lined up to see the new protagonist, and the guards of the television station recognized Ravel and let her in, and an employee guided her to where her mother was. "Oh, hello, daughter," said Dana Phoenix happily. "I'm done with everything. I'm going to ask you to wait with the other children so you can see the new protagonist." "Okay, Okasama," said Ravel as he left and headed to the stands with the children's audience, and waited minutes until the announcer made his presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a Pay Dragon to evolve. Now meet HYOUDO, the Shadow Dragon Knight." The public shouted euphorically, but Ravel was terrified to learn that Issei had returned from the distortion world and was wearing armor identical to the Securities but black. "Thank you very much. I owe all this to my beloved manager and fiancé, the recently divorced matriarch of the Phoenix clan, Dana," shouted Issei, and the public celebrated when they saw Ravel's mother going with the brown-haired boy and planted a tremendous kiss on him in front of everyone, and more to the horror and pain of the blonde-haired lowly. But above all, thanks to one person, and special thanks to her, I was able to know who to trust and who not to, and thanks to her damn betrayal, I came back stronger than ever. I present to you one of the people who sent me to the distortion world with the objective of dying there. Ladies and gentlemen, Ravel Phoenix," shouted Issei with hatred, pointing at the youngest of the Phoenix. She paled when she was pointed out for the crime she committed against the brown-haired boy, and saw how the children looked at her with desire of death. She wanted to get out of there, but the children stood in her way, preventing her from escaping. "Kids, bring Ravel to me," said Issei, who hugged Dana by the waist, and that the kids with a psychotic look dragged Ravel to their feet. "Dana, are you proud of your daughter who attacked me and sent me to that dimension?" "I will never be proud of her," said Dana Phoenix with a hint of hatred, making Ravel cry in pain and horror. "Dear, kill her. It is a disgrace to the clan." In that, Issei proceeds to transform into Darkrai, just as the children who subdued Ravel become clones of Darkrai. "As my beautiful Phoenix commands," said the sinister being while making his shadowy claws appear ready to decapitate Ravel. "Mother! Issei-sama, forgive me!" Ravel screamed in horror. Out of Ravel's body. "No!" screamed the soul of this while being consumed by Issei, and quickly decides to leave Ravel's body in her bed, and thus proceeds to disappear into the shadows, leaving an atmosphere of death and terror in the Phoenix Castle. The next day, in Phoenix Castle, everyone began to wake up. "What happened?" said Eubeluna. "Is everyone okay?" Razor said, and they nodded, but suddenly remembered Ravel. Everyone paled and went to the youngest Phoenix's room and saw her sleeping in her bed. Everyone looked relieved at Ravel, but Dana Phoenix didn't see it as a good idea and went to wake up her daughter. "Ravel, wake up," said the matriarch, but Ravel did not react. "Ravel," said Dana tearfully. She only had to move Ravel a little and her head hung without resistance. "And oh," shouted Dana Phoenix, seeing her beloved daughter dead. Her brothers were devastated by Ravel. The patriarch began to throw fireballs at his garden out of frustration for not having protected his daughter, and Razor's entourage cried at Ravel's death. Chapter Inquisition. Ravel's death in the underworld has caused, above all, a red alert in the three biblical factions, causing a strong psychosis in the surviving Gremory. But the one who was most affected was RIAS. 2 days had passed since the death of the blonde and redhead. She showed nervousness and terror in dark rooms that she practically slept with the light on in her room. She had nightmares every night, and caused quite fatal insomnia, and she was really aggressive even with her parents, her brother, Grayfia, and she reached a sickly extreme that she slapped Milikas for no reason when her little nephew asked if he could help her with something, and also Asia. When trying to calm her down, every day he repeated in a monotonous tone and with a furious expression mixed with nervousness, "Darkrai, Darkrai, 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 Darkrai." He was scared when he saw a shadow of anyone. Sometimes he lost track of where he was and what day it was, and he also walked from one place to another for no apparent reason. Zeoticus and Venilana Gremory were so affected by their daughter's psychiatric situation that Sirzechs took security measures for herself and those around her, that he asked Azazel and his cousin Sarorg to watch over her so that she didn't do anything stupid that would ruin her person irreparably. The person most concerned about the youngest Gremory's mental state was Asia, who disliked seeing her king and Wenny-sama like that. There were always afternoons and nights when she cried at the sight of them, practically subduing her in the castle, preventing her from doing anything crazy or stupid. It ranged from beating up the castle maids, destroying walls that reflected a normal shadow, to even hitting her own mother. "No, RIAS Onissima, what's wrong?" said Asia, very distressed. "I have to do something." The former nun, he cried over RIAS's current situation, thinking of a possible solution. "I have no choice but to talk to her," Asia said determinedly while changing clothes from her usual pajamas to her Kuoh Academy uniform. "Even if it costs me a scolding and punishment from Sirzechs-sama, I must do it for RIAS and Akino Onissima, and I must do it in memory of the others," Asia said, wearing the uniform and fixing her hair. In that, Asia is transported to Kuoh Academy in a magic circle, and upon entering the school zone she went in the direction of A, where her objective was. "Kate-san?" Asia said anxiously as she stood at the door of said classroom. The aforementioned was talking animatedly with Murayama and Ika Kiryu until she heard Asia Argento's voice, which showed annoyance. "I wish to speak with you," said the ex-nun with some shyness in her voice. "How strange! What business would he want you for, Yui-chan?" said Murayama, but seeing Kate-san's furious expression when she saw Asia. "Yui-chan?" asked Murayama while passing his hand over her eyes to make her react. "Eh? Ah? Oh, it's okay," said Yui, calming her friends who looked at her strangely, since they had never seen her furious with a girl, and more, with the considered saint, Asia Argento. That side of her they only saw when they were spied on by the former perverted trio in the classroom. "Argento-san, I'll talk to you, but after class," said Yui, showing a little kindness, but in her words she felt some hostility, something that made the ex-nun nervous. "Oh, okay. Kate-san," said the ex-nun very nervously. "I'll wait for you at the occult club building," said Asia as she ran away from there. "It's nothing, Matsuda-san," said Yui, also giving a smile to Issei's bald friend. "I had a colic. That's why I had that look." "Okay," said the bald boy, not at all convinced. Since Issei's disappearance, Matsuda and Motohama were too affected that they were no longer dedicated to spying on the girls. They had lost the spark of lust since their best friend was missing to perform their acts of indecency, and upon learning of the mysterious deaths of Gasper, Irina, Zenobia, Kiba, Kaneko, Rosweiss, and Ravel, for fear that the murderer would come for them and in memory of their missing friend. In a brave and public act, they apologized to all the girls in the academy for all the times they went to spy on them in the bathrooms, locker rooms, and in the pool, showing true regret, which of the convinced girls forgave them but had not been convinced, so they did something that left that with their mouths open. The afternoon of the day Ravel was murdered, Issei's friends gathered all of their porn and hentai material in the academy courtyard, and before everyone's eyes, Matsuda lit a match and burned his entire prized collection with Motohama's in front of everyone, surprising even the teaching staff and the student council, especially Sona Citri and Saji Genshiro. Approving of the change in attitude, and convincing the Academy's female audience of the imminent change of the now former perverted duo. From that moment on, his treatment of the girls, especially those in his group Murayama, Ika, and Kate, had improved considerably. Elsewhere, Underworld, Sirzechs Palace, the Phoenix matriarch spoke to the red-haired MAOU. "I am very sorry for the death of your daughter, Dana-san," said Sirzechs, bowing to the Phoenix matriarch. "I failed to protect your daughter." "Let's not talk about my daughter anymore, please," said Dana. "Phoenix, I came to talk about Darkrai." At what the blonde said, Sirzechs took a serious expression. "When Darkrai assaulted my castle, I saw how he easily defeated the soldiers you sent and defeated my family, disabled my children's powers and repelled my husband's best attacks," said Dana with a resigned face. "I was the last to confront him before he took my daughter's life. I couldn't do anything because I felt so afraid when I saw him. His spectral figure, and I could smell the scent of death on him, but what I heard before I fell asleep was a—" "Forgive me, Dana," said the Phoenix matriarch, very distressed. "How did he know who you are?" Sirzechs said, surprised. "The strangest thing was that he told me that, and I heard Issei HYOUDO's voice," said Dana, very distressed. The patriarchs, especially Dana, had grown very fond of the brunette. They treated him as if he were one of their own sons, because of the commitment he had with Ravel, and when she found out about his sudden disappearance she cried a lot. Sirzechs knew that something was not right with RIAS, her entourage, and her allies. There were many things that related them to Darkrai, Issei's disappearance, and their sudden deaths, especially what Azazel had told them about RIAS lying when she asked them about Issei, or that provoked the sudden anger of the dark murderer of his sister's entourage and allies. Thanks for the information, said Sirzechs, thanking Ravel's hurt mother for her assistance. She left Sirzechs' presence. I must talk to RIAS and my parents seriously after their therapy, said the red-haired MAOU while activating a magic circle. Grayfia, summon my parents, RIAS, Aquino and Asia-chan tonight to talk in my office, said Sirzechs, receiving, understood, from Grayfia, and in that the red-haired man returned with his paperwork. Time skip. Occult Club Building PM. Yui was walking to an area that she really hated to go to, because that area was where they made Issei disappear in the distortion world. Darkrai, said Yui, very angry. I hate coming here too, the Dark Sentinel said in his mind. I'll be alert for any trick that ungrateful nun plays on you, Darkrai said with great distrust, to which Yui nodded. The pink-haired woman knocked 3 times on the door. Come in, said a shy voice, to which Yui entered the building and saw only Asia on the club sofa. Thanks for coming, Yui Kate-san. I'm preparing some tea, she said while getting up from the sofa. I'll bring it right away. Take a seat, please, she said while going into a room, leaving Yui alone. Issei, Yui said somewhat nervously, do you feel any hostile energy? I distrust places like this. I feel a very familiar energy on the desk, said Darkrai. It's not hostile, it's like it's calling our attention to find it. Yui went to the desk where RIAS Gremory sat. Where is that energy? Yui said when she saw the 3 drawers in her desk. Bottom drawer, said Darkrai. That's it, said Darkrai, impressed. That emerald your friend, Ddraig, said Yui as she held the emerald where the red dragon's soul was sealed by the chain. You are Yui Kate, said the emerald as it shone. What are you doing here? Your life is in imminent danger here. I know, but I'll tell you one thing. I know what they did to Issei, said Yui Kate. I know who you are, one of the celestial dragons, sealed in a Longinus, so you'll come with me because at the right time you'll return to Issei, said Yui, smiling at the emerald. How do you know? Ddraig said, but Yui interrupted him. I'll tell you when the time comes, said Yui without losing her smile but in her mind. It's good to see my friend again, Issei said happily in Yui's mind, but why Yui? Asia is coming. At that the pink-haired girl closes the desk drawer, hides Draig's emerald by hanging it under her school blouse, adjusting it in such a way that the metal chain could not be seen, and at that, the red dragon immediately stops releasing its dragonic energy so that the ex-nun would not suspect anything, and immediately, Yui sat on the sofa adopting a calm position. Asia re-entered the main hall of the Occult Club building with a porcelain teapot, 2 teacups and butter-flavored cookies. With that, Asia served her guest tea and proceeded to talk with her. Is the tea okay? The blonde said, somewhat intimidated, to the pink-haired girl who did not soften her gaze. I won't deny it, it's fine, said the pink-haired girl coldly. And now why have you invited me if it's to join your damn club? You're wasting your time, said Yui sharply. Something that hurt Asia how she addressed her beloved Oju-sama's club like that. No, Yui-san, said Asia. I want to talk about Darkrai, said the blonde, terrified when mentioning the murder of her comrades, and what he has caused to RIAS Oju-sama. What business do you want to discuss with Darkrai? Said Yui without stopping, looking at the blonde. It's I want you to spare my life, said Asia, starting to cry. I don't know what I did to make you start killing my dear friends, said the blonde, crying, but when she mentioned the last thing she started to enrage the pink-haired girl. Darkrai and Ddraig, please, Yuisan, you are the only one who has contact with Darkrai. I beg your mercy, if there is any kind in Darkrai's heart, please make sure he doesn't kill me and doesn't kill Aquino-san and RIAS Oju-sama, please, said Asia, kneeling before Yui. RIAS Onisama has lost her mind. She's terrible. Of Darkrai, please, for RIAS Onisama's sake, for her family's sake, for please hurts that Darkrai stop attacking RIAS Onisama's ENTOUR, please. Faced with the blonde's statement, Yui finished her tea, left the cup on the hall table, and proceeded to face Asia. Your dear friends, said Yui with a gloomy look covered by her pink bangs. Tell me, did you consider everyone your dear friends? Yes, Asia screamed desperately. So why did they do that to Issei HYOUDO, if you considered him your dear friend and your platonic love? Yui said while looking with hatred at the ex-nun, while she looked at her terrified. Issei-san, said Asia, remembering the brown-haired boy who had given her a home and a family. Issei-san, he was just a pervert, shouted the ex-nun, causing more fury from Yui and Ddraig. Not to mention Darkrai, I didn't consider him my friend. He was just someone easy to manipulate by RIAS Onisama. He only stole the glory of RIAS Onisama and the rest of the club. RIAS Onisama promised me that Issei-san's parents would be my true parents as soon as I erased their memories. Issei-san, He didn't deserve anything, shouted the blonde angrily. Shut up, Yui said dangerously, because you make me despise people like you even more. If it wasn't for Issei, you, the stupid masochist Aquino and the damn redhead boar, you would be dead by Trihexa and RIAS Lucifer. Yui shouted, leaving the ex-nun in shock. How does he know about Trihexa? The blonde thought, alarmed. No, don't insult RIAS Onissima. The ex-nun shouted angrily. I'll call her whatever I want, damn boot-licking nun. Yui shouted, facing Asia. If it wasn't for Issei, you wouldn't have survived Rainier's attack nor the extraction of your sacred gear. You would not even have been reincarnated by RIAS. Don't you remember that Issei, precisely him, whom you despise, asked the bucking redhead to bring you back to life? The pink-head shouted, already histrionic, leaving the blonde-haired girl in shock with everything she heard. How do you know all that? Said the ex-nun, already terrified. Because I told him so, said a voice behind the ex-nun, and then a shadow appears showing Darkrai. Hello, Asia Argento. The blonde, upon seeing the sinister being, began to get scared, and upon looking directly into the eyes of Yui's sentry, lost the strength in her legs due to the terror she felt. You can't be more hypocritical, said Darkrai, looking at Asia with deathly eyes, and you still want me to spare your life. Asia recognized the voice. No, it's not possible, Issei-san, said the blonde, terrified upon seeing the sinister being. Ddraig heard that and was shocked. Partner, what the hell happened to you? Said the red dragon in his mind. The pink-haired girl agreed, took her backpack and left the building, leaving Darkrai and a sleeping Asia. Nightmare, said Darkrai as his soul invaded the ex-nun's body. Asian nightmare. Asia, wearing her nun's clothes, was in her hometown Tuscany, Italy. She was walking in a meadow carrying her usual leather briefcase, and then she sees a letter she had in her hand, and it had the address, so she immediately went to see what was there out of pure curiosity. I arrive at a rustic house where there was a small farm where wheat was abundant, there was a small mill, a small pond where there were ducks, geese and swans living together harmoniously, and some poultry pecking the ground to look for scattered seeds or an insect with which to feed. Asia then sees a cheerful blonde couple chatting with a blonde girl who looked just like Asia and, oddly enough, was dressed as a bride. The former nun hides. So my fiancé is coming from Japan today, said the happy blonde girl. That's right, Celestine, said the older blonde. I thank Michael-sama that today you join in holy matrimony with the most loyal and honest person that can exist. But unlike your lamentably older sister, we had to abandon her for being someone easily corrupted, a crybaby and someone disloyal, said the blonde lady, smiling, and at that Asia felt hurt by that description. Not to mention that your in-laws are old friends of mine, said the older blonde. Then the house phone rings and the older blonde went out to answer the call. Shortly after he comes out putting on his cloth cap. You are already at the Florence Cathedral. It's time to go to your wedding, Celestine. I'm proud of you, my little angel, he said as they boarded a car not so luxurious but big enough for Celestine to board comfortably in her wedding dress, and her parents boarded to go to the Florence Cathedral, leaving Asia dead of curiosity. Something worries me about them. I must investigate, said Asia, while she teleported to Florence to see said wedding. Florence Cathedral. The city was decorated with bridal details, and all because the wedding of the most beloved girl in Tuscany was going to be celebrated, Celestine. But also reddish details were shown with Gothic-type dragon statues also decorating the streets surrounding the Florence Cathedral. All the inhabitants of the city watched with enthusiasm as the car carried the bride. Bravo! Bravissimo! Stupendous prima donna! It was one of the many shouts that the citizens gave, and upon arriving at the cathedral, Celestine got out of the car and, accompanied by her father, entered the cathedral ready to join her boyfriend in holy matrimony. Asia arrived and managed to sneak into the cathedral. She could see Sirzechs, Seraphal, the Citri clan as spectators, and above all she sees Celestine heading to the altar under the music of the wedding march, and at the altar she sees someone she never thought she would see again in her life. Ah, Issei-san, said the ex-nun with horror and pain when she saw her ex-fiancé with his parents waiting for Celestine, and in that, the blonde and the brunette were already at the altar, while the priest proceeded to marry Celestine and Issei under Asia's pain-filled gaze. She saw how both put on their wedding rings. So Issei HYOUDO, do you accept Celestine Argento, the most beautiful girl in Florence, as your legitimate wife? Said the priest. Ar Argento? Asia said, more horrified upon hearing her last name. Is she my sister? I accept, Issei said happily without stopping looking at the blonde. And you, Celestine Argento, do you accept Issei HYOUDO the Securidii as your husband? said the priest. I accept, she said, crying with happiness, taking off her veil. Now I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride, said the priest, and then Issei proceeds to kiss Celestine to the applause of the spectators and the pain accompanied by Asia's tears. Thank you all for being here on this special day of our lives, said Issei, and especially, we thank a person who marked the life of the Argento family as well as the life of the HYOUDO family, and thanks to her, both Celestine came into my life because her sister considered the dishonor of her family for sending me into the distortion world along with the now deceased RIAS Gremory and her extinct entourage. I knew who in truth to give my appreciation and my trust, ladies and gentlemen, the traitor. None in the deception of Florence, shouted Issei, pointing at his old ex-friend Asia Argento. The inhabitants of Florence immediately saw the ex-nun, who put on a face full of terror. She wanted to get out of their teleport, but it was no use, since she saw that Sirzechs prevented her from using magic, and an angry mob of Tuscans captured her and sent her to the square of this city. They immediately tied her to a wooden post and put firewood under her feet, worthy of a scene from the Salem Witch Inquisition. Asia watched with fear and horror as the inhabitants of Florence looked at her with hatred and a desire for death. And she saw Issei, his parents, Celestine, and the Argentos in the front row. They looked at Asia with a macabre smile. At that moment, the priest arrived, along with an executioner carrying a torch. Citizens of Florence, said the priest who had married Issei and Celestine, today, we will proceed with the inquisition of Miss Asia Argento. She is no longer an Argento, shouted the father of this one and Celestine, causing more pain in Asia. She dishonors my humble family. Very well, to the which Asia said the priest, not even asking for forgiveness and accepting our Savior Lord will save you from the flames of hell, and your executioner will be Diodora Astaroth. Asia couldn't be more terrified when she saw Diodora with his usual fake sweet smile with the torch. Last words, witch? Said Diodora, smiling but showing those eyes that intimidated her. Audio from the video plays. Forgive me, Issei-san, please forgive me, Asia said, crying, and then Issei proceeds to transform into Darkrai while continuing to hug Celestine. She smiled at Asia's suffering. Light the fire, Diodora, said Darkrai. The descendant of Astaroth nods and proceeds to burn Asia at the stake. Out of Asia's body. Audio from the video follows. Issei-san! Asia shouted, and in that Darkrai consumed the blonde's soul, leaving her corpse lying in the club's hall. In that Darkrai sees some candles in the club's hall and throws them, causing the fire to fall on the carpet, and little by little it was consuming the furniture, the upholstery, and Asia's corpse. Before it reached him, Darkrai proceeded to retreat into the shadows. The fire slowly consumed the occult club building. Underworld. Sirzechs, Grayfia, Sirzechs, and Venilana were waiting for RIAS with their charges. So the redhead arrived with Aquino, but she was desperate. Where is it? Where is it? RIAS shouted exasperatedly. The Gremorys were taken aback by how aggressive she arrived. Where is Asia? RIAS shouted more histrionically while Aquino tried to control her. At that the Gremorys paled and sensed imminent danger in the former nun. Suddenly a circle appeared on Sirzechs' ear and he made a face of terror. RIAS, Serorg has notified me that the occult club building is on fire, said Sirzechs, but Asia, who was inside, couldn't get out of there. The redhead and Aquino were horrified and immediately transported themselves to the club building to get a terrible surprise. The building was burning in the darkness of the night, and the firefighters were trying to put out the fire. Suddenly, RIAS saw Serorg with several injuries while being treated by paramedics. Serorg, RIAS said in horror, and Asia? Her cousin frustratedly pointed at a shroud bag. RIAS slowly went to said bag and upon opening it saw the charred corpse of her Hyoudou, no trace of her blonde hair left. Asia! RIAS shouted when she saw another of her dead servants. Chapter Abandonment and Honor. Following the fire at the old occult club building and the horrific death of Asia Argento, the following day a statement was issued stating that Kuoh Academy would remain closed in mourning for a week. RIAS was devastated, having seen her little Hyoudou completely charred. She couldn't sleep because she still remembered the face of the blonde's corpse, showing deep pain. The Gremorys left the talk for another day, since if they asked him about things related to Issei, Darkrai, and the murder of his entourage, he could collapse at any moment. But the low blow would come the following morning, RIAS said, Aquino entering the room. Aquino said the redhead, very distressed, but immediately saw that she had some suitcases behind the Raven W. Where are you going? RIAS, I have decided to give up being your queen, said Aquino, giving one more blow to Rias's soul upon learning that her friend. No, please, Aquino, don't leave me alone. Rias shouted histrionically as she went to her now ex-queen, grabbing her by the calves to prevent her from leaving. I won't stand you abandoning me. Aquino looked at her with much pity and pain. I have no other choice, Rias. I have a feeling I'll be the next one to be killed, Aquino said with much pain. If that's the case, I'd better go somewhere to avoid you crying over my corpse. No, please, said the Gremory, very hurt. I'm so sorry, Rias, for being a bad friend right now, but I talked this over with Sirzechs-sama and Ota-san, and they gave me their approval, said Aquino, hugging her former king. But I'm doing this for you and me. Either of us has a way out from Darkrai's wrath. Rias continued crying at Aquino's decision, and little by little she was leaving her. Please give me one last smile before you go, Rias said, very hurt. At that, Aquino grants his last wish and gives him her most sincere smile. At that, Rias wipes away her tears and gives him one last smile as well. I wish you the best, Aquino Himejima, said the redhead with a look full of determination, something Aquino hadn't seen in a long time since Gaspar's death. Great success, next Empress of the raiding games, Aquino said, giving her a determined smile, returning her evil piece of queen to her, only to turn her back on her and leave her friend's presence. Rias couldn't bring herself to feel bad for Aquino. Next, maybe it could be me, Rias said, but then again comes the scene of Issei where he is sent to the distortion world. I'll kill them all, Issei shouted, seeing the entire occult club. Perhaps, Issei, have you done it? Rias said in total panic. No, without Rosweiss magic he can't get out of there. Rias denied everything. Or perhaps is he your emissary of revenge? Rias said, getting angry. Issei, I assure you that Darkrai, with my hands I will kill him. He ha 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 ha. Rias laughed psychotically, which was heard by everyone in the castle, worrying her parents, her brother, Grayfia, and Milika's more, who since she slapped him hasn't approached Rias at all for fear that the next attack on him will be more than a slap. Aquino had also heard Rias's psychotic laughter, and could not feel terrified by the Rias that Darkrai caused. I'm leaving too because you've become unstable and I feel more danger with your company. Excuse me, Rias said, Aquino leaving the Gremory castle for the last time, teleporting to the human world, Himejima residence. Aquino had arrived home, but there were two people already waiting for her, and they were not in a good mood to see her. Aquino! Barraquil shouted, accompanied by Azazel. They both looked annoyed. Ota-sama, said Aquino, somewhat intimidated. We need to talk to you about something, Barraquil said, but it will be inside the house. Oh, okay, said Aquino, entering the residence with her suitcases. The three fallen ones sat in the living room where the two cadres confronted Aquino. Tell me, Aquino, with all sincerity, what did you do to Issei? Barraquil said, making her nervous. No, we didn't do anything, Ota-sama, simply he disappeared, he said, hesitating as he fell. But stop lying, Azazel shouted, releasing his aura, intimidating Aquino. We know what they did to Issei. All because of that, your comrades have fallen one by one. Aquino was quite terrified. I'll repeat it one more time, next time I won't be nice. What the hell did you do to Issei? Barraquil said, calmer but angrily. Rias, forgive me, Aquino said in her mind. She begins to tell him about the plan to get rid of Issei. They couldn't stand the envy of Issei hogging the spotlight. Rias had convinced them to attack him, send him to the mysterious dimension, and that she would be a better security and would lead their entourage to greatness and bring honor to Gremory. But they would keep all of that a secret until the grave. Azazel and Barraquil couldn't listen to the former queen of Gremory anymore. Shut up, Barraquil shouted, stopping Aquino's excuse in its tracks. If Shuri were here, she would be ashamed of having a daughter like you, said the cadre, causing Aquino to shed tears. But Ota-sama, I did it for Aquino replied. But don't make the situation worse, said Azazel, looking at Aquino with hatred. Aquino, thanks to your confession we have the necessary tools to condemn Rias Gremory. Aquino couldn't have felt more terrified. She had directly caused a misfortune for her friend. But you will also be condemned, young lady, said Barraquil, turning his back on Aquino. Today you will not go anywhere. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, you will be brought before justice. For your stupid jealousy, you could cause a war by having done that to the pillar of the factions. Did you not think of that? I don't give a damn about Issei, Aquino shouted furiously. Rias will be the new pillar of the factions, and it will be a matter of time before Ddraig accepts RIAS. Path. Barakiel had slapped Akino at what she said. She was in shock from such a blow, knocking her to the ground. And you said I'm the disgusting person, said Barakiel, looking at Akino with disgust. Otiu-sama, you should support me. Akino screamed in pain. I support just causes. I do not support the tantrums of a spoiled and jealous girl, said Barakiel, and adding fuel to the fire. It's good that your traitorous comrades have died, that is the least they deserve. At least I will hand you over and recover the honor of Shuri's family, said Barakiel, while he teleported in a magic circle, leaving a disgruntled and furious Akino. Don't even think about leaving this house, Himejima, Azazel said with an intimidating tone to Akino. You leave here and I myself will kill you without caring about earning the enmity of Barakiel and the Himejima clan. Justice will be done for Issei HYOUDO, Azazel said while he also retreated in a magic circle. Akino collapsed in the living room, crying over the crime she, RIAS, and her deceased comrades committed. Outside the residence, Azazel met with Barakiel. Do you think I'm Darkrai's next victim? Barakiel said. Most likely, said Azazel, looking seriously at his partner. I will prevent him from killing her. I prefer that my daughter serve her sentence in Tartarus than that someone kill her, said Barakiel seriously. I wish you success, my friend. I just hope Darkrai takes pity on Akino, said Azazel as he retreated in a magic circle, leaving Barakiel as the only sentry of the Himejima residence. Elsewhere, KUH Mall PM. Azazel was having coffee while looking at a Technological Advances magazine. I can't tell him that Darkrai is Issei. If I had, Barakiel would have caused a scandal in the entire alliance. When suddenly I arrive. Yuikate-san, said Azazel, interrupting his reading when he saw his student sitting in front of him carrying many bags of clothes. Azazel-sensei, said Yuikate, taking out an envelope from her sweater. Issei made these 2 cards and told me that you could give them to MAOU, Sirzechs, and Overlord Michael. Of course. This is yours. Yui took out a black envelope, giving it to him. Don't even think about snooping on the other leader's cards because Darkrai put an anti-snooping spell on them. And I told you what would I do if I slightly violate the seal on the envelopes from, let's say, Michael's? Azazel said, interested. Yui stared at him with a face like, do you really want to know? He will practically fall asleep for a millennium and you will suffer the worst nightmares he has ever had, and something that Penemy likes to do to the fallen angels with heavy sleep, both men and women, is to give them a pleasurable stimulation. From what Issei told me, being a witness how he enjoyed doing it in the new fallen angels, and of course, as the saying goes, lost body, as says Yui. But, okay, I understand, says Azazel nervously because he didn't want to tempt his secretary to sodomize him while he was asleep, since it is one of the perversions that Penemy likes to do so much, like all Grigori. Well, I'm leaving, Azazel-sensei, said Yui, smiling. I tried to give him the envelope as soon as possible. The pink-haired girl finished saying goodbye to the group. Azazel saw the contents of his envelope and began to read it. But when he finished reading it, he couldn't help but smile, but in his mind he had worry and fear. So today you will claim your last victim, said Azazel. I just hope this doesn't affect everyone in the alliance, Issei said the cadre while taking a sip of his coffee. Time skip. Himejima residence. PM video audio plays. There was a rather uncomfortable silence around the residence. Only when the wind blew and made the leaves of the trees in the yard sway did it give a chilling sensation, and I didn't want anyone to be there, not even as a joke. Barakiel stood in the courtyard of the residence with his serious look, waiting for the murderer from RIAS's entourage. He knew that at any moment he would come for his daughter. Suddenly he turned to the residence and saw the light in Akino's room still on. You don't want to sleep, or you can't sleep, said the cadre. Could it be that you have realized the weight of your crime, that you can't be at peace with yourself? But then Barakiel begins to feel the wind blowing harder. The sky strangely begins to darken more. The stars and the moon change from white to reddish, and he felt a great pressure throughout his body, and also something he hadn't felt since he faced Trihexa and his wife Fear. Get out, whoever you are! Barakiel shouted. Go, Barakiel, even knowing the great sins your daughter committed, will you defend her? Said a voice that practically gave the cadre goosebumps. I know, but I won't let you hurt him, Barakiel said a little nervously. At the Akino residence, she watched as her father screamed. She also felt that familiar pressure, although her body only felt pressure and a terrible feeling. He's coming for me, Darkrai is coming for me. Death has knocked on the door of this residence, the former Gremory queen said in her terrified mind. Outside the residence, Barakiel desperately tried to locate the invader. Show yourself, shouted Barakiel furiously. At that the atmosphere became heavier, to the point that they felt an intimidating aura full of hatred and resentment mixed with the gloomy atmosphere. The presence of death could be felt more in the Himejima residence. Your wish is that Barakiel's shadow extends, which I notice, and from it came the spectral figure of Darkrai confronting the cadre. These are orders. Barakiel looked straight into RIAS's entourage's murderer's eyes for the first time, and as he did so, he no longer felt fear, it was terror that coursed through his veins. Cadre Barakiel, I will kindly ask you to get out of my way, said Darkrai, looking at him and intimidating the cadre. And no, I won't do it, said Barakiel, recovering some courage, preparing a spear of light. I know you're coming for my daughter, and I will face you for her sake. I admire your duty as a father in wanting to protect your daughter, said Darkrai while preparing a shadow claw, but today Akino Himejima will die. Get out of the way. I won't do it again. Over my corpse. Barakiel shouted, throwing the spear of light, but Darkrai, with a single movement of his shadowy claw, crash, he had destroyed the spear of light very easily, impressing the cadre. It was my best spear of light, said Barakiel, impressed by the power of his enemy. Then try this. At that, Barakiel begins to summon lightning bolts from the sky and throws one directly at Darkrai, impacting him. He managed to hurt him. Akino shouted excitedly, but that smile disappeared when Darkrai got up as if nothing had happened and the small wound that Barakiel caused closed. A great power, worthy of you, Barakiel, said Darkrai, giving a compliment to the cadre, who could not believe that the best of his lightning attacks caused minimal damage. But with me you will need something more than that to stop me, and in that Darkrai releases a thick mist from his body to camouflage himself in it, and confusing Barakiel even more. The cadre tried to find Darkrai in the fog but couldn't, and searched for him in the air, but the fog became thicker and colder, which made it difficult for him to breathe properly, making it impossible for him to fly and forcing him to return to solid ground. Where are you? He shouted to Darkrai when suddenly, Barakiel never knew when something attacked him. The fog was dispersing when he saw Darkrai with his shadow claw. It had pierced his abdomen. The cadre was surprised as part of his mouth was beginning to shed blood due to severe internal bleeding. You left me no choice, said Barakiel, before putting you to sleep. I will share something with you. In that, Darkrai puts his forehead on a badly wounded Barakiel and sends him to the memories of the sinister being, revealing the scene where Issei is attacked and sent to the distortion world, and also his transformation in that world along with meeting Giratina, his savior. Barakiel couldn't believe who Darkrai was. Issei? Said Barakiel, impressed. What did he do to you, Aiken? Enough, said Darkrai, and then he uses hypnosis on Barakiel, putting him to sleep instantly. Before Akino's look of horror, but then she sees Darkrai with terror, but he stares at her, freezing her with terror. I must get out of here! Akino screamed, trying to use a magic circle, but the process was cancelled and broken. She tried to use the doors of her residence, both the front and the back, but she couldn't open them because both Azazel and Barakiel had put anti-escape seals on them, practically by preventing her from escaping from justice. The two cadres left Akino in a trap with no way out, condemning her. At that moment, Akino heard one of the doors of the Himejima residence open with a terrifying screech, terrifying the brunette, feeling cold, terror, and wanting to scream in terror. She turned around and found her victim, who was looking at her with a hunger for hatred. Give, Darkrai, said Akino, terrified, falling to her knees from so much fear. The sinister being did not respond. Please. Don't kill me. I'll do whatever it takes, but please spare my life, cried Akino desperately, kneeling down begging for mercy. If you want forgiveness so much, said Darkrai, why did you keep attacking me that damn day? What? Akino said, confused. Don't you remember HYOUDO Issei? Said Darkrai, to which Akino was shocked. No, you are not Issei. Akino shouted, pointing at Darkrai. Issei is not capable of killing the women he loves and his two friends. That caused Darkrai's eyes to redden. It was a sign of anger. You still have the nerve to say that? Said Issei, very angry. That love died when my body crossed the portal of the distortion world, said Darkrai. But you couldn't have gone out. Akino screamed in terror. You need Rosweiss magic, and she would have summoned you. Forgive me, Issei-kun, said Akino, as she slowly fell asleep in the hall of the house. Darkrai proceeded to do the same with the other Gremories, invading Akino's inert body with his soul. Akino's nightmare. Akino was seen going with Kuoh's uniform, humming and going to her house. When she arrives, she receives a pleasant surprise. Oh, daughter, it's been a long time since we last saw each other, said a woman who was an emotional pillar for Akino. Ma. Akino cried, hugging her mother. My girl, I missed you so much, said Shuri Himejima. Family is here! Barrichello shouted as he entered the Himejima residence. Akino saw something she had wanted to see since childhood, her father and mother together again, something that hadn't happened since she was a child. We owe a lot to Suzaku's fiancé. He brought your mother back to life, Barrichello said, completely happy. In fact, it shouldn't take long for them to introduce him to us. Tobio gave his complete approval for Suzaku and her fiancé to get married. Akino wanted to know who brought her mother back to life and her cousin's husband, who would accompany her as leader of the Himejima clan. That's where Tobio comes in. Hello family, he said, greeting the Himejima. Tobio! Said Akino, Shuri and Barrichello smiling. And Suzaku? She's with him, said Tobio. They stayed enjoying the cherry blossoms. It seemed romantic to them. I want to know who gave my mother her life back and thank him forever, said Akino, leaving the residence, walking on the cobbled path surrounded by trees where the beautiful white-pink petals of the cherry tree were blooming a lot, and there she saw her cousin, the leader of the Himejima clan, looking with love into her reddish eyes, holding the hand of a brown-haired man that Akino recognized and little by little began to scare her. Hello, Akino, said Suzaku. I present to you my fiancé and the one who brought your mother back to life. And you know him very well, HYOUDO Issei, she said, smiling with love at the brown-haired boy, who looked at her with indifference. Akino-senpai, said Issei, bowing to her out of politeness, and as he called her, it hurt Akino a lot, not only because she knew the atrocity he committed, but now he is the promised and next new leader of the Himejima clan. Issei! Barrichello shouted, approaching happily. It's a shame that my daughter wasted such a good prospect, but it's good that we have you in the family. I would have liked to have you as a son-in-law, said Shuri, but I'm glad you're our leader's fiancé, and thank you for bringing me back to life. Akino continued processing everything, and little by little regret began to invade her person. Issei-kun, said Akino with crystalline eyes, threatening to cry. He looked at her with the same indifference. Please forgive me. Akino cried, kneeling before Issei. I apologize, please. I know that I have committed a great atrocity, and now I regret everything. I don't care that I am the only one who regrets of all of our RIAS Gremory's ENTOUR. I beg your forgiveness, Isekai'ed. Akino cried before the surprised gaze of her parents and Suzaku. Akino said, Suzaku, you know that what you did to my fiancé is such a serious crime that the Himejima clan punishes it with death, said the leader sternly. I know, Akino said, very sorry. Suzaku, please, is there no other way for you to correct your mistake? Said the cadre, worried about Akino. No, Barrichello, said Suzaku, looking sternly at the cadre, which intimidated him as clan leader. I cannot tolerate these serious faults that do not affect the honor of our clan. We do not have in our ranks people of such low character as RIAS Gremory, said Suzaku, looking with indifference at his cousin Akino as clan leader. Akino Himejima, if you have honor and are truly repentant, you will clear your name by committing seppuku. At what the leader said, Shuri and Barrichello are horrified. Okay, Akino said resignedly, while with magic she changed her uniform to have a white kimono typical of seppuku, a rope and a kaiken, a dagger. Mother, I humbly ask you to tie my legs in such a way that when I fall I do not do so with the dishonor of dying with my legs open. But daughter, said Shuri. But nothing, mother, said Akino, smiling at her mother. I was an accomplice to a crime by attacking Suzaku Nichin's fiancé. Now I realize my grave mistake in going along with RIAS Gremory. And Issei, if somewhere in your heart there is a little love in you, I just want you to know that despite trying to kill you, I am very sorry and I would have liked to fix things with you. I will only tell you my last wish. Issei HYOUDO, promise me that you will take care of my loved ones and the Himejima clan and all the factions, said Akino, crying with total regret and seeing her parents cry, while Shuri fulfilled her last wish by tying her legs in Inkaba so that Akino would do the suicide ritual. Akino, in the presence of her parents, Suzaku, who was behind her, and Issei, unties her hair, proceeds to take the kaiken, and instead of putting it on her abdomen, she directs it to the carotid artery in her neck, and with one movement, Akino performed the suicide ritual while slowly bleeding out. Suzaku summoned a katana and proceeded to decapitate Akino to prevent further suffering. Out of Akino's body, Darkrai comes out with Akino's soul and proceeds to devour it. I promise, Akino-san, said Darkrai, I will take care of everyone, especially Barrichello, Tobio and Suzaku, while he left Akino's corpse and placed it on the sofa as if he were sleeping. Darkrai proceeds to retire in the darkness of the night. Time skip. It was already morning and Barakiel wakes up from the ground where Darkrai left him sleeping. "What happened to me?" Isekai'ed said, recalling Darkrai's attack that had pierced him. He saw his body, which was healthy, but then saw the bottle of Phoenix's tears lying on the ground. But he remembered. "Akino!" Barakiel shouted in terror. He opened the door of the residence and saw Akino on the sofa, resting with a calm smile. Barakiel slowly approaches his daughter. "Akino," said the terrified cadre. "His daughter does not respond." "Akino responds," said Barakiel, starting to shed tears. Akino only rested with that same smile of tranquility, as if all the suffering and the burden of conscience left her, allowing her to rest in peace quietly. "Akino!" Barakiel shouted as he confirmed the death of his only daughter. Chapter New Moon Waltz. Having consumed the last soul, the next day a new moon had begun, and that meant that Issei could become human again. That was something that Yui, Azazel, and partly Barakiel were happy about. But what Issei was hiding from her, and only the one who knew this information was his savior, the dragon Giratina, was that he would only have 1 month to live as Isekai'ed to die when the next new moon set again. The saddest thing would be that the next new moon ended on December 5th. Issei decided to die on Christmas. At the Himejima residence, Barakiel had buried his daughter next to his wife in the clan's exclusive mausoleum. They had especially supported him and offered their condolences to Tobio and Suzaku. He also received support from Azazel. "So you know," the blonde said to his partner. "I never thought that the murderer of the Gremory entourage was my beloved son-in-law." Barakiel said, frustrated. "I understand his reasons for killing the entourage of that damn redhead, but my Akino, if I were you I wouldn't make an accusation against Issei. If you were to make an accusation it would be against RIAS Gremory. She was the one who started everything and caused the death of her entourage, including your daughter," said Azazel. "Issei, he was just another victim of RIAS Gremory's selfishness, just like my daughter was," Barakiel said. At that, Azazel passes him the letter that Issei gave him, and Akino's father began to read it, causing a smile unconsciously. "That's a very risky maneuver, but I would like to participate in this for my daughter," said Barakiel. "Very well," said Azazel as he handed him the red envelope that had written, "For Sirzechs. Give this to our ally Siscon while I have to see my ex-brother. I have to give him this," said the cadre, showing a golden envelope that said, "For Michael," withdrawing in a magic circle. "Very well," said Barakiel, and then the cadre begins to communicate with the red-haired MAOU through a communication circle. "Sirzechs Palace. Okay, fine, my most sincere condolences, Barakiel. I'll wait for you at my parents' house," Sirzechs said in a communication circle. Sighing sadly, "I must inform RIAS of this," said the red-haired MAOU, teleporting to his family's castle. Gremory Castle. Sirzechs reunited with his parents and little sister. "I have gathered them because this concerns you, RIAS," he said, looking seriously at his sister, who feared something inevitable. "Barakiel has notified me that Akino Himejima has died at the hands of Darkrai." RIAS now cried with more pain. Her best and last friend had died, and she practically felt alone. "But there is good news," said Sirzechs, watching Barakiel arrive in a magic circle. "Excuse me," said the cadre with a bow upon entering the Gremory Castle, showing a serious face. RIAS sees the father of her deceased friend. He gives her an unfriendly gesture, something that made her nervous. "MAOU Sirzechs. From a great friend I deliver this message. Here is the good news. I am leaving," said Barakiel, leaving in a magic circle. Sirzechs destroys the security seal on the envelope and takes out the letter, reading it calmly, leaving his parents, Grayfia, and especially Milica's and RIAS in doubt. But they saw Sirzechs smile after so much time. "Family, this is a memorable day not only for the underworld, but for the Alliance," the MAOU shouted with joy. "What's up, son?" said Venilana, seeing Sirzechs' reaction. She was expecting great news. "Issei-kun is back," Sirzechs shouted as he showed them Issei's typical signature when showing the letter to his parents, Grayfia and Milica's. They celebrated the return of their son-in-law, but with RIAS, Issei's return was their downfall, and best of all, he wants to see all the factions on Christmas Eve. "I'm going to notify Serafal, Yasaka, Ingvild, Kuroka, Roigun, and Elmenhild. They have been waiting for news from him for a long time," said the MAOU, teleporting. "How good he's safe. I want to ask him many things," said Milica's, happy that his hero would return. "It's good news, isn't it, RIAS?" said Zeoticus. Yes, my Issei. I knew you would return sooner or later," said RIAS, trying to feign happiness when inside she knew her hours were numbered, something that Grayfia noticed. I must go to my bedroom to find some clothes for Christmas Eve, said RIAS, running and getting lost in the castle. Zyataka-sama, I will help RIAS-sama to give her advice to look presentable so that she is here within a month, Grayfia said, to withdraw and go to the same direction as RIAS, which the patriarch agreed to, letting the descendant of Lucifer go to the redhead's room, but something stopped her march, and it is a talk of RIAS with herself. Grayfia became more serious than usual, discovering something she didn't believe. Azazel is right, he wasn't lying about what he told me, said Grayfia as she withdrew. RIAS was responsible for Issei-sama's disappearance, she said as the silver-haired girl teleported to Gregory. At the same time in heaven, Azazel arrived with his ex-brother and gave the envelope to Michael, and he reacted with great joy, and the sky lit up with joy and happiness upon learning of Issei's return. Gabriel cried with happiness because his secret love was alive. The seraphim thanked Elohim his father by mentioning that it was a miracle that the pillar of the factions was alive. Immediately Michael contacted Asgard, the Hindu faction, Olympus and Egypt to tell them about the return of their hero, the great hero of the Alliance who helped defeat RIAS Lucifer. Finally, Azazel arrived at Gregory and informed Penemu about the return of her love. The purple-haired girl couldn't help but cry with happiness. But the joy was interrupted when Grayfia arrived at Gregory. Grayfia-san, why do we owe you the honor of your visit? Said Azazel, surprised by Grayfia's unexpected presence. You were right, RIAS was guilty of Issei's disappearance, said Grayfia. What are you talking about? Said Penemu. I'll explain, said Azazel. He told her who Darkrai really is, how the Gremory entourage betrayed Issei and forcibly disappeared him, concluding with Grayfia listening to him. Penemu couldn't be more furious with RIAS Gremory. She wanted to kill her for what she did, and the deaths of those involved in her forced disappearance were more than justified. Penemu, don't be surprised, said Azazel. RIAS will have her punishment. In fact, the ones who know about this are you and I, Grayfia-san, Barakiel and the human Isekai'ed, but said Azazel, handing the letter to Penemu, we are the only ones who know about the plan that Issei, who through Isekai'ed provided us to incriminate RIAS, he said while Penemu read the letter. While in the other factions there is joy and happiness, we will execute the plan. Penemu finished reading the letter from her beloved Issei and couldn't help but smile. My Issei always making a scene wherever he appears. Ju, I can't wait for Christmas, said Penemu, smiling while Grayfia took Issei's letter from the frame and also began to read it. She also couldn't help but smile. I just hope Sirzechs doesn't think of attacking in the middle of the party, Grayfia said, smiling somewhat worriedly when Milikas heard the news. She smiled again after so long. Well, Grayfia-san, tell Sirzechs that Gregory will take care of the place where the factions will meet and receive our hero. And remember, we must not say anything about the plan at Issei's request, said Azazel while receiving a nod from the albino retreating in a magic circle. Azazel communicated the news to the fallen angels of Isekai'ed's return, and as the other factions celebrated in a big way, many fallen angels cried with happiness knowing that their hero and platonic love was alive. Elsewhere, Isekai'ed walked happily through the streets of Kuoh and was very well dressed. Why? She knew that Issei had managed to absorb Akino Himajima's soul, and that meant that Issei would return to his normal appearance, and today, they would have the date that Issei promised her. Yui entered a dark alley and looked for anyone passing by. You can come out, Issei, Yui said excitedly, and then Darkrai appears in the shadows. You will be the first to see my human form again, said Darkrai as the sinister being began to shine white, and little by little the spectral silhouette began to mold into a human silhouette. Little by little the brightness began to diminish to reveal Isekai'ed in the clothes with which he had been thrown into the distortion world. Hello, Yui-chan. Issei. Yui shouted happily with tears in her eyes, hugging the brown-haired boy. He reciprocated the hug with much affection. Issei, finally, Yui said while crying as she hugged the brown-haired boy again. Sorry for worrying you, Yui-chan, said Issei while the pink-haired girl put a finger on his mouth, silencing the brown-haired boy. The important thing is that you're here again, Yui said, smiling at Issei, and immediately, sure, Yui had surprisingly kissed Issei, something that the brunette began to reciprocate little by little. I've always wanted to do this. I haven't been able to do it since you were with the damn Gremory all this time, Yui said with some resentment when mentioning RIAS, but now that you're free from her, I'll be able to tell you this, Yui said as she took a breath and blushed and exclaimed, Isekai'ed, I like you a lot. That had taken Issei more off guard than the kiss he had received earlier. Isekai'ed, do you want to be my boyfriend? Said Isekai'ed, blushing, leaving Issei impressed by the Kendoka girl's declaration and then a smile from the brown-haired boy. Yui-chan, you have shown interest in me. You stayed by my side despite my terrifying appearance and having killed people for my own benefit. I was able to trust someone after my conviction by Gremory, and I'll tell you one thing, I agreed to be your boyfriend Yui-chan. The pink-haired girl couldn't hold back her tears of happiness any longer, and kissed Issei again. Let's start our date, Issei said, to which Yui nodded. They went to the mall to eat ice cream, to the movies, to the arcade, to go dancing, to take a walk in Kuoh Park where the trees were beginning to shed their orange leaves as a sign that autumn was ruling the day. Issei and Yui talked, especially about the supernatural. Issei told her a lot about the biblical factions, Asgard, Olympus, the Hindu faction and yokai, and above all, he also talked about the two most powerful entities, Ophis and Great Red. Yui listened to everything with great interest. The date ended and night arrived and the couple had arrived at the Keite's residence. Issei, thank you so much for today. I waited so long for this day, you made me happy today, said Keite, smiling at the brown-haired boy. Yui-chan, in a month there will be a meeting of the biblical factions and you are invited. You will meet the other leaders of the factions. You will go on behalf of the fallen angels as a companion to the leader Azazel and the Penemu cadre. They will come for you, said Issei, while with magic he transformed back into Darkrai, while I will protect you in the shadows until then, Yui-chan, said Darkrai, entering Yui's shadow. The pink-haired girl understood and went into her house. And the month passed like the wind caressing the leaves of the trees quickly. The factions prepared everything for the Christmas meeting. Azazel located a good place where it would be held. A hall that had an open-air dance floor where a leafy forest and a crystalline lake reflected the beautiful view both day and night, and a small bell tower that played beautiful melodies at midnight and at noon. Sirzechs would take care of the food and the atmosphere. He personally invited the brown-haired boy's parents to the party, telling them that he would not return for a month until he became strong. This news filled the HYOUDO residents with joy and happiness after a long time. Mickey and Goro HYOUDO cried with joy upon learning that their son was alive. Michael, for his part, prepared the angels to sing Christmas carols and, with Grigori's help, prepared special necklaces for the demons so that when they mentioned a blessing or something similar, the meeting would not become a hospital branch for the demons. But the one who enjoyed the month the most was Yui Keite. Every day she enjoyed Issei's company. After school they went out to many places. She looked happy by his side and sometimes Ddraig in his emerald form accompanied them. Yui wore it as a necklace and also joined in the conversation between both. It was also clear that Ddraig was very happy that his partner and friend was okay. Yui and Issei little by little deepened their relationship. It was a very stable relationship, full of love, both could say through their eyes. I love you. Every day they enjoyed it to the fullest, laughter, caresses, kisses that only time and the moment were witnesses of the love they professed to each other. The day of the meeting arrived. December p.m. Keite's residence. The pink-haired girl hummed as she got ready for the meeting of the three factions. She was wearing a very beautiful dress that made her person shine a lot. You look very beautiful, Yui Issei said in his mind. There is no doubt that my girlfriend is the most beautiful woman in the world. Thank you, Anata, said Yui-chan. Meanwhile at the meeting, AAAACHU. Gabriel, Seraphal and Yasaka had sneezed, returning with Keite's. The pink-haired girl went down to the living room where her parents and a very special person for Yui were. Oba-chan! Shouted Yui while the sweet old lady went to where her granddaughter was. My dear Yui, said the grandmother, you look very beautiful. It seems that the meeting you are going to is of utmost importance, and the way you are dressed, you want to impress your boyfriend, right? Said the grandmother while Keite blushed. And you did it, Issei said in his mind. Before you go, here, said the grandmother, handing her a star-shaped device with several green scrolls on each point of the star. It's an amulet, it can grant a wish. As long as you have a pure heart full of love, your mother has one just like it. Then her mother went to a shelf and took out a pendant that contained a rather strange feather. Yui smiled and accepted her grandmother's amulet. Thank you, Oba-chan, said Yui, hugging her grandmother again. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Yui answered it, and when she opened it, they found Azazel standing next to Penemu. The former was wearing a heavily starched black suit, while Penemu was wearing a lilac dress that showed off her provocative body. Azazel-sensei, Penemu-sensei, said Yui, greeting them. Otu-chan, Oka-chan, Oba-chan have already come for me. I'll see you later. Take care, daughter, her parents shouted happily as the doors of the residence closed. Yui, accompanied by her friends, walked to a vacant lot. Well, it's time to go, well, said Azazel while activating the magic circle to go to the party and meeting of the factions. Party hall. Azazel, Penemu, and Yui appeared in the magic circle. They saw all the cream of the crop of the Society of Demons, Angels, and Fallen Angels. The three went to the reception and handed out their invitations, to which a demon saw Yui. Hey, what's a human doing here? He said as he looked at Isekai'ed. Ignore him, Yui-chan, said Azazel. After the reception accepted their invitations, the cadres and Yui headed to the hall, but the same demon came and roughly grabbed Yui's wrist. Human, I won't repeat it to you. What are you doing at a party of pure demons? The same demon shouted arrogantly. Yui just looked at her attacker's hand and gave him a look of indifference. I have no obligation to tell you my reasons. Disgusting, dirty, arrogant demon, said Yui, getting out of the demon's grip, which angered him. Now yes, I'll make you my bitch again, he said, raising his hand to slap her. But someone stopped him, and it was the Penemu cadre. Oh no, very bad decision, Demon-chan. She is my guest just like Azazel, said the cadre with a smile that promised pain to whoever caused it. Better stay away from her if it suits you, or you'll have a dildo with super glue as lubricant buried in your ass, not to mention that you'll have several spears in your abdomen as if you were a voodoo doll. The demon was terrified, apologized, and ran away from there. Thank you, Yui said to Penemu. You're welcome. Issei's friends are also my friends, said Penemu, taking his hand to go out with the pink-haired girl to the party hall. Yui was amazed at the party organized by the factions before the new moon that could barely be seen. She saw many demons, fallen angels, angels living together. A choir of angels led by Gabriel could be heard singing Bells of Bethlehem. The stewards and maids led by Grayfia served champagne and the children fruit punch. Also seen the leaders Azazel, Michael, Sirzechs, Ajuka, Sarah Fall wearing a Christmas MAOU shoujo outfit, Falbium with Yasaka, Odin with Thor, Zeus accompanied by Hera and Ares, Ra with his daughter Batet, Anubis, Osiris and Isis. Shiva accompanied by Ganesha conversed with jubilation and happiness, toasting at every moment. It could be seen that Citri's entourage was chatting happily with the other entourages such as Razors, Sarorgs, also with Vala's team among others. Milikas was also seen playing with Kuoh while they were watched from afar by Elmenahilde and Ingvild, who were taking care of them at Grayfia and Yasaka's request. The Gremory patriarchs, Citri and Phoenix, were also seen chatting happily with Issei's parents. But there was someone who did not enjoy the meeting, RIAS Gremory. She maintained a posture of feigned happiness in front of everyone, but inside she wanted to faint and run away from there. But the redhead felt someone watching her and located the one who was looking at her in a hostile manner. RIAS, what's wrong? Said Sona. You're supposed to be happy about your fiancé's return. Shut up, Sona! RIAS screamed madly and went to confront the brown-haired man. Sirzechs, Lucifer, and leaders of the Alliance, I formally accuse Isekai'ed of the murder of my ENTOUR and the death of Irina's Hyoudou along with that of Ravel Phoenix. RIAS screamed, pointing her finger at the brown-haired man. Everyone was surprised by the redhead's accusation, and Kuroka, Razor, Michael, and Griselda began to look at Issei with some resentment. But someone came out to confront RIAS, and it was Isekai'ed. I also accuse you, RIAS Gremory, for the forced disappearance of Isekai'ed and his attempt of murder, said the pink-haired girl, confronting the youngest of the Gremory. Ha! You don't have enough proof. Human, you don't have witnesses that what you say is true, said RIAS, making fun of Yui. But I wouldn't count on that, said Azazel, who through a magic circle made an opal helmet appear. Honorable Alliance, since a controversy is arising in a legal and criminal manner, what if through this helmet the truth is revealed to everyone, said Azazel, and once and for all the verdict is dictated as to who is the true culprit of the situation that is being experienced at this moment. There were murmurs of approval from everyone. Issei and Yui were ready to confront, but RIAS was starting to get nervous. It is worth mentioning that this helm only transmits the true memories of the mind of the person who wears it. Those that are modified with magic will not be transmitted, said Azazel. So Issei and RIAS, who of the two volunteers? At that, Issei takes a step forward and Azazel places the helmet on the brunette's head and begins to transmit what happened since he was mistreated by RIAS and her deceased entourage, to end with the brunette being sent to another dimension. At that, everyone looked at him strangely, and suddenly an intense hatred and disappointment began to emerge for RIAS Gremory, who upon seeing Issei's memories, began to tremble with fear. Another memory was when he met Giratina and his transformation into Darkrai, and the reason why he killed the redhead's entourage. Everyone could not bear Issei's cry of pain. Some covered their eyes and ears at such a cruel metamorphosis. The next was when he returned from the distortion world to protect Yui from the attack of RIAS's entourage and confronted them. Consequently, Gasper's death. The hatred towards RIAS and now her deceased entourage continued to grow. Valerie was disappointed by Gasper's attitude. Then the next memory was when Irina confessed her hatred to Issei and regretted her betrayal of Issei by revealing her black wings. Now I see why she avoided going to heaven and her sacred energy was corrupt those days, said Michael with obvious disgust for Irina. Afterwards, Zenovia's confession saying that Issei had stolen RIAS's glory, and in Zenovia's nightmare how she revealed her instant love for Valley and her impending hatred towards Issei when she tried to stab him in her dream. Vala and Griselda could not bear the thought of the deceased former Durand bearer, and the latter was disappointed by the attitude of her former legal protégé. Then the next memory was when he defended Yui from Kiba's treacherous attack ordered by RIAS, and later his nightmare of the blonde Tsubaki, who had previously cried for Kiba, now felt disgusted by him. Then followed another treacherous attack by Kaneko towards Yui, on RIAS' orders, and her confession reflecting how ungrateful and traitorous the white Nikomata turned out to be. Kuroka, upon hearing what her younger sister had said, couldn't feel more disappointed in her. Then there was Roswei's attack on Yui, and also confessing her hatred for Issei. Odin and Gondo were more than outraged by Roswei's, and although it hurt them, the deceased Valkyrie had well deserved her death. Then there was the day Asia was found charred, her confession to Yui when she showed her repudiation of Issei, and her macabre plan with RIAS to erase her parents' memories so they would be Asia's new parents. Goru and Miki HYOUDO sent RIAS a death glare and began to regret taking Asia in. Then to finish Akino's confession and admitting her crime, ending with the seppuku of Barakil's daughter, and the promise that Issei made to the deceased Akino. I finished seeing Issei's memories and they were all feeling solidarity with the brown-haired boy, but they looked at RIAS Gremory with death-like eyes. She began to beg for her life. At that an elder of the demonic council spoke. If Issei HYOUDO's memories are authentic, Azazel-sama, we must also put the helmet on the human Yuiketes. Everyone approved of the old man's idea, and with that the pink-haired girl accepted the request. Azazel put the helmet on her, and one of the memories was when RIAS tried to recruit her, and the pink-haired girl asked about Issei, and she revealed how easy it was to get rid of him, about how she classified the MAOUs as idiots who believe everything in her plan to be the new Sekiryudai and new pillar of the factions, and the order to kill her for having revealed her plan, and the already known confrontation and defense of Darkrai. Sirzechs and Seraphal looked at the redhead with eyes of hatred. The other memories were practically the same when they confronted the members of RIAS's entourage who clashed with the pink-haired girl, causing more disappointment in the deceased members. Azazel took off the helmet and now put it on RIAS. She tried to resist. "RIAS, I order you as MAOU to put on that helmet," Sirzechs shouted, looking at his sister with hatred, which made the redhead begin to cry in fear, and Azazel put said helmet on her and began to reflect RIAS's memories. The first was when she and her entire entourage and allies accept Issei, convincing everyone to betray him, eliminate Ddraig and become the new Sekiryudai. After the already known treacherous attack of RIAS against Issei and the sending of the chestnut to another dimension. After that, RIAS and her entourage celebrated with wine because their plan was a success. Zeoticus and Venelana were horrified and furious at what their daughter did. Then another memory was when he acted in a dramatic way, and not only did he classify the MAOUs in that way but also Issei's parents. He classified them as ignorant and easy to deceive. Everyone at that meeting couldn't stand RIAS anymore. Then the next memories were when he ordered Yui's forced recruitment, his macabre plan with her, his pain upon learning of his dead servants and allies, his hatred and his delusions. Azazel removed his helmet from an intimidated and trembling RIAS. "I think it's more than obvious who the culprit is," said Barakil. "RIAS Gremory, I accuse you of being the one who caused the death of Akino Himejima because of your jealousy and envy. I will not press charges against Issei. I absolve Issei of all charges." Naya said. "Kuroka, I'm disappointed in my sister. I won't demand justice for what she did. Just like me, Gasper committed a crime in complicity with this envious bitch, said Valerie Teeps. I withdraw the charges against Isekai'ed for the death of Gasper Vladi. I absolve Isekai'ed of all charges for Zenovia's death, said Griselda Corda. I must understand that Durandal is now with you. I suppose he responded to your sense of justice and honesty. On behalf of the Phoenix clan we absolve and forgive Isekai'ed, said Razor, Raphael and Dana Phoenix. We withdraw the charges for Ravel's death. Asgard drops the charges against Isekai'ed for the murder of Rosweiss, said Odin. For her childish and stupid attitude, she dishonored the Valkyrie Corps. Heaven drops the charges against Isekai'ed for the murder of Irina Shida, said Michael seriously, while his brothers approved the decision, and to further hit Rias's ego and pride. The Gremory clan withdraws any charges against Isekai'ed for the death of Asia Argento and Hyoudou, said Zeoticus Gremory, glaring at his daughter. Rias was practically horrified. She couldn't believe that the relatives of her entourage turned their backs on them and favored Issei. Her hatred for him increased in a sickly way, as did her fear. I think we have a verdict, right? Sirzechs said as he sees Serafal, Ajuka, Falbium, Michael, Azazel, Yasaka, Odin, Shiva, Zeus and Are. They nod at Sirzechs. We the leaders of the Alliance pardon Isekai'ed for the deaths of Gasper Vladi, Irina Shida, Zenovia Corda, Hyoudou, Kaneko Tuju, Rosweiss, Ravel Phoenix, Asia Argento and Akino Himejima, and we condemn Rias Gremory for treason to the Alliance by trying to usurp the position of pillar of the factions and attempt to kill Isekai'ed. Onizum Rias was going to reproach furiously, but, for you I am MAOU Lucifer, Rias Gremory. Sirzechs shouted with hatred which emotionally impacted the redhead. Now we must think carefully about a punishment. May I suggest something? Said Giratina. Death against Rias Gremory would be too gentle a punishment, so said Giratina while with his hands he opened a portal. Do you recognize this Rias Gremory? Rias, upon seeing the portal, recognized it and was terrified. That's the same portal you sent Isekai'ed through. But you'll wonder how Issei got his powers and returned from that dimension? Easy. Something that stupid Valkyrie ignored is that he thought that dimension was uninhabited when I am the only being that inhabits that dimension, said Giratina, and I was the one who brought him back to this existential plane. When your entourage was going to kill Isekai'ed, said the silver-haired girl facing a terrified Rias. So leaders, I propose that Rias Gremory suffer eternal torment in the distortion world. There was a murmur and chatter among the leaders, and the elders of the demonic council also joined in the conversation, to which Sirzechs came out on behalf and said, Dragon Giratina, we accept your proposal, said Sirzechs. Rias Gremory, you will be imposed as punishment of exile to the distortion world. Therefore, any record in the archives of the underworld, your achievements and any recognition will be erased without appeal. You will be disowned from the Gremory clan and likewise the memory of your deceased entourage. No. Rias screamed and ran away. I hate you, Nii-sama. I refuse to receive this. Issei, I still feel your power of Darkrai. It makes his suffering easier, said Giratina. At that, Issei prepares a black gap to his surprise. Black gap? At that, the brown-haired boy threw said sphere towards Rias, who was trying to escape, and it hit her back. No, I curse you, I'm Issei, said Rias, falling asleep on the dance floor. At that, Giratina carries Rias like a sack of potatoes and will proceed to enter said portal, but before, when I enter the distortion world, I will create a seal so powerful that no being, not even a dragon god, will be able to open a portal and access my dimension, said Giratina. I do not want another tragedy like the one that occurred with Isekai'ed, and regarding this, said Giratina, pointing at Rias entering the dimension, she will enter a nightmare, and the worst thing for her, she will never wake up from it. I'll take care of that. Goodbye leaders and factions, and Issei, do not commit another stupidity of that kind again. You have people who love you, many girls who love you, and above all Yui who loves you madly, finished Giratina, and immediately jumps into said portal with Rias to close it forever. Time skip. It was already in the morning and all the factions began to sing Christmas carols again. Now all together, demons, fallen angels, yokais, Asgardians, Valkyries and Egyptians, all sang happily while Issei, in the company of his loved ones, enjoyed a plentiful Christmas dinner breakfast. Issei, said Yui before everyone's eyes, and in that boom, the pinkette had connected a hook in Issei's abdomen, spitting out a piece of turkey from her mouth. Why are you doing that, Yui-cha? Issei said, but suddenly, Yui unexpectedly kissed Issei, causing jealousy in the girls who were in love with the brown-haired boy. Promise me, or rather promise us, that you won't do that stupid thing again, said Yui with a threatening air. Yes, I promise, said Issei, all intimidated. Ha 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 ha. You may be the master of nightmares, but against the main of your tamers you are defenseless. Saji laughed, accompanied by Momo and Ruruko. The main one of my Issei said, but was interrupted by Sirzechs and Ajuka. Issei-kun, I'm very sorry for what RIAS and her entourage did, but leaving aside the depressing things, we have your Christmas present, and that is from the MAOUs and the Demon Council. We will promote you from high-class devil to supreme-class devil, and finally we will give you your evil pieces that you did not collect because of your incident, said Sirzechs, smiling at Issei, while Ajuka had in his hands a box with the evil pieces, but these were golden with black details. We reinforced your evil pieces with magic from all the leaders, since certain girls want to be part of your entourage, since with the power you gave at the time of making them it was not enough to reincarnate them, pointing to all the girls who are in love. At that, Ajuka proceeds to install the king piece on Issei. What is the name of your clan, Issei-kun? Ajuka said. Darkrai clan, said Issei. A new clan has been born, said Sirzechs, the Darkrai clan. At that, everyone applauded at that. Issei Naya, I want to be part of your ENTOUR. Kuroka shouted. Me too, Issei-sama, shouted Lefei and Kuoh. So do we, said Ingvild and Elmenhild. So do we, Serafal, Gabriel and Penemu shouted. On the other side of Razor's entourage, Isabella Rook, Knight Carlamine, and Nicomedes and I and Lee were somewhat hesitant. Girls, please go. I know you're in love with Issei, so I'll do the exchange, said Razor, smiling at them. Thank you, Razor-sama. From Sona's entourage, Tomo Meguri and Tsubasa Yura also wanted to go with Issei. Go ahead, I know your feelings for Issei-kun, so I will exchange the pieces, said Sona, smiling at both of them. Hi! Both girls shouted, hugging their soon-to-be ex-king. With that, the girls each took a piece. Kuroka took a rook, as did Serafal. Gabriel and Penemu both took a knight piece. Ingvild and Elmenhild each took a bishop piece. And Kuoh and Lefei each took a pawn piece. To reincarnate, just say these words and that's it, said Ajuka, passing him a paper, to which Issei agreed. By order of Issei HYOUDO, Serafal Citri, Kuroka Hellcat, Gabriel, Penemu, Elmenhild Karlstein, Ingvild Leviathan, Kuoh, Lefei Pendragon, be reborn as my servants and as my family, shouted Issei, and in that a magic circle with the emblem of the waning moon appeared, and the pieces they had taken were absorbed by the aforementioned ones, now being part of Issei's entourage. He then proceeded to exchange pieces with Razor and Sona, also installing the pawn pieces for Carlamine, Ni, Lee, Isabella, Tomo, and Yura. After that, Issei proceeds to see his box and discovers that only the queen piece remains. You wonder why no one claimed the queen piece, said Serafal. It's because that piece is for someone who was there during those difficult days and supported you unconditionally. Even though you were a murderer and a dark being, she always remained by your side, showing great love for you, and all of us recognize the queen of the Darkrai clan, Isekai'ed, said Serafal, bowing to the pink-haired girl. So did the new servants of Issei's clan, leaving Yui stunned. We recognize her as the main woman in Issei's heart. Are you serious? She said while Issei's maids nodded. Isekai'ed, do you agree to be my queen, and do you agree to marry me? Said Issei, kneeling down and taking the pink-haired girl's hand. She started to cry, and with a smile, I accept, my Issei, he shouted happily, hugging the brown-haired boy, and everyone celebrated the upcoming union of Issei HYOUDO and Isekai'ed. At that, Issei proceeds to put the queen piece on Yui. By order of Issei HYOUDO, Isekai'ed is reborn as my servant, as my fiancé, and as my family. At that, the queen piece was absorbed by the pink-haired girl, and immediately a pair of ghostly demonic wings appeared on Yui's back. But I'm not as strong as the others, said Yui, but a voice interrupted her. I'll take care of that, Ddraig shouted, and in that the emerald was absorbed by the pink-haired girl, and on her left arm the boosted gear appeared on Isekai'ed's arm. Congratulations, I chose you as my new bearer. With Issei's consent, you showed the courage to face several demons even knowing that you had everything to lose. Isekai'ed, you are the new Sekiryudai. Congratulations. Thank you, Ddraig-san, said Yui happily. Today a new dream is born. But now let's enjoy this beautiful Christmas. Issei fried. Yes. Everyone shouted as the sun lit up a new dawn for Issei and his new clan. Meanwhile, world distortion. RIAS was seen sleeping and lying on a rock having a nightmare. RIAS nightmare. RIAS was seen being raped by her husband relentlessly. Come on, bitch. This is just the beginning of your damn punishment, shouted the husband, who was somewhat obese, and penetrated her anally. Did you think you were going to get away with it? You're just a self-intended bore. The Gremory clan should never have give birth to you. And that's not all, baby, said her husband. Look who enjoys your punishment. The newly promoted MAOU, said the demon as he stopped the grape of RIAS, and with a remote control he activated a screen where it reflected Issei with his lover's Issei-sama. What do I do with my incubator? Hell, Astra, said Issei indifferently. Have as many children as you want, and let your true wife raise them as her own. Just limit yourself to giving water and bread to this bitch, and let a deaf mute give it to her in the mouth. Enjoy your new incubator, my friend, said Issei while Yui hugged him and gave RIAS an evil smile. Shut up! Diavolo, shouted Issei. Begged you for mercy and you gave it to him? No! Now he suffers the consequences, Diavolo shouted as he outlined the redhead's butt and penetrated her anally again. No! Ah! RIAS screamed in pain. Out of the RIAS nightmare. Giratina in its original form saw RIAS suffer in her nightmare. This, you earned it for your stupid jealousy, and the worst of all is that you will never wake up from that nightmare, and you will never leave the distortion world, said Giratina as it flew, leaving the sleeping RIAS to suffer for all eternity. Epilogue. Time flows for everyone. Opening for the epilogue angel theme. POV. Author. Months later, after HYOUDO Issei's return, he and his girlfriend Isekai'ed returned to Kuoh Academy to finish their studies. The retinue of the new Darkrai clan moved into the HYOUDO residence, in charge of the security of the area and its king and queen, supported by the Citri clan. Issei and Yui graduated with honors from Kuoh Academy, and in the middle of the graduation ceremony Issei gave the engagement ring to his beloved girlfriend in the presence of his parents-in-law and the entire academy, and when Yui said yes I do, the academy shouted and celebrated the engagement between the now ex-perverted beast and the former vice-captain of Kendo. Murayama approached the newly engaged couple and congratulated them on their engagement. She had never seen Yui so happy. But the brunette learned something that left her frozen. Issei and Kai'ed revealed that the pink-haired girl was 1 month pregnant. Yui, let's say, was overcome by her hormonal desires and, in complicity with Issei's entourage, gave her virginity to the brunette, ending in a night of passion and a surprise 9 months. After Issei dedicated himself to Yui and his harem, the other girls also took care of their queen while Issei dedicated himself to the duties of clan leader. The other girls promised that they would leave Issei dry when his baby with Yui is born, and the ones who were most expecting were Kuroka and Kuno, a precocious girl she had to be since the Nikomata knew that their mating season was around those dates, when Isekai'ed would be relieved of her pregnancy, and with Kuno he wanted to have his first time. When the pink-haired girl was 3 months pregnant, Issei and Yui got married. Later, when Yui was 7 months pregnant, Issei married the other girls in his entourage and harem. So almost years passed where the babies of the other girls and Issei's entourage gave birth. Kuroka gave birth to Nekomatadrigon twins named Mitra and Kuroyuki. Serafal to a half-dragon, half-demon boy named Marcus. Gabriel to a girl half-angel and half-dragon, named Eva. Penemu also gave birth to a half-dragon, half-fallen angel girl named Reiko. Ingvild gave birth to a half-dragon, half-demon child named Tilo. Elmenahilde gave birth to a half-vampire, half-dragon girl named Courtney. Lefei didn't give birth until years after her first time with Issei and gave birth to a girl named Saber. Kuno still didn't want to get pregnant until she was at least, and her body was maturing. With the ex-girls, Phoenix with Carmine had a girl named Misha. With Isabella he had a boy named Cory. With Ni he had a Nekomatadrigon girl named Fuka, and with Lee another girl named Fumika. With the ex-Citri girls he had a boy named Turo with Tomo, and a girl named Ariel with Yura. Finally, Ophis had 2 dragon twins named Cain and William. And just as Sirzechs said, the names of his sister's entourage, with the exception of Akino's, and at Issei's request, were erased from the underworld's historical archives, where they were stripped of the glory and recognition for having fought against Trihexa, condemning them to oblivion. The Darkrai clan was gradually respected and feared by the entire underworld and factions, since Issei still had that dark power when he was Darkrai to subject his opponents to terrible nightmares, but without fatal consequences. With Isekai'ed, the new Sekiryudai and the others in her entourage with her history of power, was classified with SSS rank, highly dangerous. But leaving aside the narrative, Let's go with Issei, who was watching the sunset on a paradise island. Dear, said Yuya, notice just arrived from Sirzechs-sama. Our rating game against the Emperor of Rating Games Daihouzerbilial is in a month. Has the Emperor challenged us? Issei said, surprised, to which Yui nods. He was surprised when we defeated Roigun-sama and wants to test our strength, said Yui, smiling at him. Okay, it's time to take the first place in the rating games, said Issei. With you by my side and with the others, we can achieve our dream. Yes, my Issei, said Yui, giving the brown-haired man a kiss on his lips.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.